All right, welcome. This is Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into the show. Show this out, show this out, show this out. Okay, today is Friday, the law of one. Let me turn off that bit overlay for a second here, right? So you guys can see me. Welcome to December. Wherever you are on the planet, it is now December. It's December 2nd in some places. Rick, you're in Australia. I think it's December 2nd, early morning for you, right? But for me, it's 3 p.m. West Coast America time on December 1st. Welcome to December. Okay, so share this out. Like I said, start tagging people in the chats. Get everybody in here. In fact, I should go switch over to the chat so I can see you guys. Rick said that reminds me of an old Aussie TV show. Hey, hey, it's Saturday. Oh, did they actually say that? We had an old cartoon here that was Fat Albert back in the 70s. And it was done by, what's his name? The guy who was, I can't think of his name right now. He's a comedian, very, very famous. Got in trouble a few years ago for drugging women and having sex with them. He played Mr. Huxtable on his own television show. And that was his cartoon back in the 70s. And Fat Albert, his shtick was to say, hey, 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 when he met everybody, the Fat Albert character. So that's funny that you guys had a hey, hey, it's Saturday. And then we had that Saturday cartoon called Fat Albert. And he would go, hey, 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 every time he said hi to somebody. So that's funny right there. Right. So Bill Cosby. Thank you, Rick. I couldn't think of his name. Bill Cosby. Yeah. So he was a very funny man. I remember growing up. Back when there was no internet, so you couldn't watch comedians' shows, they used to put out vinyl records of their shows. So you could literally play them because we didn't have CDs yet, and we had 8-track tapes, and we were just moving into cassette tapes when I was a child. So you either had the 8-track tape and an 8-track tape player, or you had a record. That is the medium that everybody used because we had no internet. We had no smartphones. We had no videos didn't even come out until 77 or so before they came out with VHS and beta videos. And then there was that war between the two of them, which the United States won and the Japanese eventually scrubbed beta. A lot of people said it was the other way around, that America was beta, but it wasn't that way, at least not what I remember. Anyway, so I remember growing up and my parents had records of Richard Pryor, and Bill Cosby, and I'm trying to remember who else, besides music, but they had those two comedians for sure. My father really liked them because they were very outspoken. Lenny Bruce, very outspoken, and would talk about politics and race, and they were very funny, and they were very real and awake comedians. So my father liked them, and so did my mother. And so we had the records. And so I remember playing them as a kid growing up. It was fun. It was fun. And that, I don't know where they went, of course. That was my introduction to Elvis as well, and a few other bands that were very popular. I remember when I was a kid, I went down to the neighbor's house, and the neighbor's parents were in their 20s. And this was in the 70s. So they were right on into heavy metal. And I, for the very first time, heard Black Sabbath, the album of Iron Man and War Pigs that they were playing. And I was, what is this music? Forever changed my life because I was already listening to rock and roll from Grand Funk Railroad and Elvis. And then there was this metal stuff. It was coming out of England. I got hooked on that. And by the 80s, I was a Judas Priest fan, and the Metallica showed up here on the scene in the United States. They were all American except for Lars Ulrich. I think he was born in America, but he was European descent. His father was a famous European tennis player, tennis pro. But all the rest of them were local and grew up in the Walnut Creek and Concord, as a matter of fact. Half the band, and lived next door to my ex-wife. we were growing up. So she knew those people more than I did. And I met them and hung out with them. But isn't that funny how things give you some memory? And then, of course, Rick, you just triggered all of that memory in me for me bringing that up. So that's hilarious. Okay, so we finished session 29 last week. So we're on, I believe, session 30 now. I believe that's what this is. And we're still, this is February 24th, 1981. We haven't even gotten out of the first couple of months of 1981 with Raw. Right, Cheech and Chong, that was another one. I had their cassette. Oh my God, they were hilarious. When they did Up in Smoke, oh my God, I was too young to see it at first. And then it came out on, we had our pay channel was called Channel 100, the first one, because it was 100 on the dial. And I saw it on there. I cut school one day when I was in junior high with a couple of my buddies, and we went back to my buddy's house, his apartment, because his dad had Channel 100, and we knew that that Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke was going to be on, and we could watch it. So we all cut school that day. It was a bunch of us. It was like 3 of us, and then we went and got a couple of girls too, and we ended up with about 5 or 6 people, one of which I ended up marrying. We brought her. We all watched it. We all got high, smoked pot, smoking cigarettes, got high, and we watched Up in Smoke. And oh my God, it was one of the funniest movies ever made. And then they made a second movie called Still Smoking. And then by that time they did that here in America, it became very passé to be on drugs in a movie. So then they ended up being comedians again and going into acting because they couldn't do the drug thing anymore because it was passé. But oh my God, those movies were funny. Funniest movies. Those guys, Cheech and Chong's comedy to this day is funnier than they'll ever get credit for in the world, I think, because they were so hilarious. Yeah, you got me going now, Rick. I'll do this real quick and then we'll get. But I remember when they were in front of the Queen of England, live on stage, in front of the Queen of England, and they did their skit where they were dogs in a park, and they were on their hands and knees, and they were smelling each other's butts, and this whole skit. And the Queen was laughing. She loved it. God rest her soul. She loved it, and everybody was freaking out. The Cheech and Chong with their crazy comedy. And, known to be pot smokers and drug addicts, they're just going to offend the Queen. Oh, she loved them to death. And then they did their skit that they were really famous for, where they did a parody of Star Wars. And that was hilarious. And then they did a wrestling, because wrestling was very popular then and still is in the United States. Fake wrestling, entertainment. And they did one where their characters were, Cheech was Itchy Scratchy. He was a Japanese wrestler, sumo wrestler, but he wasn't big enough to really be one. And Tommy Chong was Hakalugi. He was an Italian wrestler. And they were wrestling the Invisible Man, and there was no one there. Oh, my God, the physical comedy that they did to be able to pretend there was someone in the ring with them. And both of them were able to keep focused on where that person was supposed to be and what that person was supposed to be doing while they were wrestling, and did this entire skit live many times. And oh my, they were so funny. That the physical acting ability of them in there paralleled anything that anybody did, except maybe whatchamacallit, Bud Abbott and Lou Costello, when Lou wrote Who's on First, which is the funniest comedy sketch in the history of the world to this day, and it will never be topped. Great. If you guys ever want to see something that is literally everyone in the world will tell you, and especially comedians, that is the most brilliant, the funniest, best sketch ever written for a duo comedy team in the history of the world, and that is Bud Abbott, Lou Costello, written by Lou. Everybody thinks because he played the dumb guy that he was the brains of the outfit, and it's actually really hard to play somebody dumb. That's why Cheech and Chong were so funny, because they were playing people that were dumb and stoned. So if you guys really want to watch something that's fabulous, watch Who's on First, and it's on Google. It's on YouTube. Who's on First by Bud Abbott and Lou Costello. One of the funniest to this day. I still mess around and do that with my mom. Well, she doesn't remember it now, but I did when she remembered. We'd be driving down the street, and I would say, there was a street called How, right? And I would say, what's the name of the street here? And there was another one called Watt. And so I would say, look, that's the Watt. And she would go, huh? And I would go, what's the name of the street? And then I would start up with, well, who's on first? And she would start laughing because I would say, what's on second is part of the skit. And I would say, what's the name of the street? And I said, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you. You'd have to see the skit. If you understand the skit, you would die laughing because he was saying, who's on first? What's on second? I don't know's on third. And today, tomorrow, and things were in the outfield. Oh my, so hilarious. That skit is confusing on purpose and funny as heck. Should see that. Okay, let's get away from comedy because I'm sure there's some people who are going, what does this have to do with the Law of One? It doesn't. We were just reminiscing. So I apologize for anybody out there who might be offended by me saying, talking about comedy, but funniest sketch by far, and it's not just my opinion. Every comedian on the planet to this day will tell you the same thing. Bud Abbott, Lou Costello, who's on first? You should look it up. It's hilarious to watch. Okay, Penny, welcome. Denise, welcome. I didn't say hi to you guys. If you're out there and you don't say hello in one of the chats, it doesn't filter in here. I don't get to know who's out there. I just see numbers. Okay, so let's move on to the Law of One. So let's get started on that now that I've wasted 12 minutes talking about comedy. But that stuff was classic funny, not just because I was young. Comedians aren't there's some that are very funny now, but there's not as many that were so classically funny as the guys that came out of the 60s, moving through the 70s into the 80s, Robin Williams, people like that, Eddie Murphy, people like that who were just pioneers in the comedy world. And of course, Steve Harvey, one of the greatest comedians, hardest working guy in Hollywood today, he has like 5 television shows, not a joke either. One of the greatest comedians ever in the history of the world. There's so many that came out of that king of comedy. And then I'll stop because I wanted to be a comedian at one point, probably should have. If I wasn't doing this, I would have been a comedian because I am actually very good at comedy. I just don't show it here because I'm always serious. But ask my family and friends, they'll tell you, oh my God, when he gets going, you just die laughing. Great improv guys in the history of the world that now, because of cancel culture, it's harder for comedians to do what they're doing. But some of them are just going after cancel culture, which is what you should be doing as a comedian. Too many nowadays, and then I'll get onto the Law of One, too many comedians sold out because they were afraid of their jobs. Every single talk show in the United States, all the late night guys, there isn't one that I can think of except maybe Bill Maher, who didn't sell out and just start going, well, I got to tell jokes only about Donald Trump, and I can't do anything about telling jokes about the LGBTQ plus infinity plus. There's more pluses now than there actually are words in the dictionary, which is really odd. They made things up. And they literally were afraid of losing ratings because people would boo them in the audience because of how divisive the world is right now because of all of what's going on. So they got scared instead of standing up to that. And those who have decided, screw those guys, I'm going to stand up to them. They are now bringing comedy back. Thank the Lord that they're bringing comedy back to the United States because they're not afraid. They're unafraid of being canceled by this cancel culture, and they're canceling the cancel culture, which is what comedy is supposed to do. It's supposed to poke fun at everybody, not just a one-sided thing, which is what they were trying to do with controlling the narrative. And it's unfortunate. Now, you see how I'm tying that into the Law of One? It's unfortunate that infiltrated, and those of us who are paying attention knew it when it happened. They even talked about it on television, like Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon, especially Jimmy Fallon. How he was just relentless on everyone. And then people started booing him in his audience, and his producers told him, knock it off. You're ruining ratings. We're going to fire you. And he has sold out and has been ever since. I loved him. And he's a great Irish comedian. He's American Irish, but over here, we're proud if we have any Irish blood. And he unfortunately sold out, and he's just ego, and he's about worrying about his career more than actually being funny. They're all doing that now, and they'll pay for that as time goes. They'll pay for it, and they'll realize it. But hopefully, people will forgive them. Okay, So let me stop ranting about comedy and move back into the law of one. So we were talking last week about the universe itself. I just put out some of the stuff that we talked about 2 weeks ago and last week in fact, I just shared it in the chats for you and posted it on all my platforms. A clip of a show from, I think, 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago now. I don't think I've done anything with cutting up clips from what I talked about last week or the week after. So those might be almost a month old. But they literally, we were talking about that and the universe itself and spiritual gravity. And if you look at any of my reels, shorts, whatever they're called on whatever platform you're on, except for TikTok, I haven't caught up. I'm posting like 3 a day because I was off TikTok for a very long time, almost a year, I think, close to 8 months to a year off TikTok. And I went back on there because they up there started bugging me and saying, all the people between 8 and 35 are on TikTok. You need to post there. And I had people down here telling me the same thing. So I decided, okay, fine. So now I'm posting 3 of my reels that I already made per day to catch up, and I'm probably about maybe 12 or so reels behind. So I'll catch up in this next week. So then all the stuff that I'm currently talking about is going to hit TikTok in the next week or so. Okay, so let's go. Mel, welcome. So let's get on to the law of one, right? So it says Mel's talking. Who are you talking to? She says, hey, you busy? Hubby's finalizing lots of paperwork and stuff for his retirement. Is that what was going on? Well, good for him that he was finalizing everything. And he's, if he is retiring and not just planning ahead. I mean, if you finalized everything to plan ahead, that's also good. But congratulations for that. But you didn't specify whether he's actually retiring now. Pardon me, I got cat hair in my eyes. Or cat dander, one or the other. I love my cat, but I'm allergic. But I still love her to death anyway. Okay, so let me stop screwing around here and start. I'm going to play some of this right now. This is, like I said, February 24th, 1981, session 30. I'll do a sound check. I'll let the question play. Let me know if you guys can hear it okay. And then yeah, he's done it 42. Good. It took me, Mel, until I was 48. I think I was 48. I was 48 when I retired. So good for him if he was able to plan that far ahead and get himself out at 42. My brother, who is now, I'm 56. My brother's 54. He can actually retire, but he's not because he's planning. And so what he's doing is he's still working, which he could already check out, but he's not, to get a better pension. And he's going to school to become a theologian to get I think it's his bachelor's or his doctorate. I think it's his bachelor's because I think you have to get your bachelor's first, then you can get your doctorate. I'm not sure which, but he's getting his certification, which I'm happy with as a theologian, so that he can literally be a pastor at a church like myself. I mean, I'm not, but I could. I have the license as well. So he'll have the license to be able to teach spirituality, and he's going through the college to do that right now in his off time. So he's planning so that when he does retire there, I'm sure he's going to be continuing in some facet to teaching people in the world spirituality and draw his nice pension. He's working for FedEx, which is a governmental program. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start, right? What's that? Rick says, unfortunately, at the moment, looking like I won't retire. No nest egg, but I didn't either. I just have Social Security. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing and trusting that that I won't need that. Writing a book and hoping that that'll start generating some funds as well, and then doing what we're doing. Starting. Thank you for letting me segue with that. What we're working on behind the scenes is starting a nonprofit to then bring people to your guys' attention, and those of you out there, to get you guys to make videos or have us film them for you about what you're doing in your communities to show the world that individuals can make changes. And we're trying to spawn people by that process to get involved more and make changes by showing them how effective individuals can be. And we're working at that right now in the background. And I'm not sure how long it's going to take to get that up and operational, because I've never started a nonprofit. I've run them. So as Jacqueline Taylor, we've both run nonprofits, but never started one. So we've been involved in them. For years, I was an officer in the Knights of Columbus and was a part of the team that did the finances and all of that stuff for the local area of the San Francisco Bay Area. Along with my stepfather, we did that for quite a few years before we quit. So we had literally different titles to where we were taking care of all of that stuff on a small level, at a church level, and at a parish level, depending on what you call it, and on a level that would be considered in retail, a regional. And I was in retail prior to that, and went to school for all of that. So I have all of that management skills and business, and run my own business today. I'm just not making any money off of it. Okay, Penny, right? A lot of us, Penny said, oh my God, I love that idea. We were thinking, what's the next phase? And in our think tank, we decided that we needed to have a nonprofit, because we not only are we wanting to do that with bringing people live to talk and their videos and having a platform for people to go to watch that, because it's on YouTube and things like that, but you have to know what you're looking for. So we're going to put that together, but we're also going to do many other things around the world as well. We want to start programs to help people, literally helping disabled people and help people to ascend, literally getting people the knowledge of how to return to the old ways. Those are the themes that you guys know. I have a group and chat, and my book is entitled The Reality About Reality, Returning to the Old Ways. So we're going to be helping people to learn how to do these things, which entails a lot of our knowledge of teaching people how to cultivate their own food, how to plant crops, when to grow that stuff. All of those things have been taken away from this society, and they're going to be needed in the future, in the not too distant future. And those of us around the world that are involved in this know that. That's why I wrote a book about prepping, literally called Prepping / Survival for the Beginner. And I haven't written anything else after that. And I got all of my videos deleted off of YouTube. They don't want you knowing that information. They don't want you knowing how to physically take care of yourself, or mentally take care of yourself, or spiritually take care of yourself. All of those things we're going to be teaching going forward. And everybody's doing it out there in the world. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a balloon. We're going to create a place where all of those people can come and actually contribute. So we're going to bring everybody together to contribute, that all these people individually that are out there on the planet doing this stuff already, and give them a place where they can go, a home where they can go and advertise their stuff and get the information out to everybody, so that everybody on the planet knows, hey, if you're wanting to figure out what's going on spiritually and physically, and how to learn how to do these things to be self-sufficient in a physical and in a spiritual way, where do I go and who do I talk to? Bam, here's this place that we're putting together. So we're going to have many programs that are going to be under that umbrella as we go. But first thing we have to do is get that umbrella up, get that parachute up. And then we're going to go from there. And that we already know from the other side that it's going to take off, and we're going to have plenty of money to then help people around the world in a big way. And we know that. We just need to get it going to do so. And once you see that come up, you'll see that it starts to grow and it'll get bigger. Right. Right. Yeah. Right. You guys are you guys are still talking in the chat. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start, because I haven't, now that we're 25 minutes in. So let me start with the law of one, and you guys let me know if you can hear it. Okay.
February 24th, 1981. 30.0 Ra. I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. We communicate now.
All right. So let me know if you can hear that. Okay. Connection's all good, Penny says. Okay, then good, right? As long as you guys can hear it, I had to put my glasses on or lean back to be able to read that. Okay, let's continue.
30.1 Questioner, I am going to make a statement and then let you correct it if I have made any errors. This is the statement. Creation is a single entity or unity. If only a single entity exists, then the only concept of service is service to self. If this single entity subdivides, then the concept of service of one of its parts to the other part is born. From this concept springs the equality of service to self or to others. It would seem that as the logos subdivided, parts would select each orientation. As individualized entities emerge in space/time, then I would assume that they have polarity. Is this statement correct? Ra, I am Ra. This statement is quite perceptive and correct until the final phrase, in which we note that the polarities begin to be explored only at the point when a third density entity becomes aware of the possibility of choice between the concept or distortion of service to self or service to others.
Right, and that happens once you become conscious or self-aware, because you're already conscious before that. So let me clarify that. Once you become self-aware, then instinctively you realize that you have the choice to become, and usually you don't know it, but on a higher level, you're of course already aware and already awake. And then that filters down to your state of mind here. And of course, as soon as you become self-aware and you're born on this planet as a human being, then literally you have an ego and a conscience. And the conscience is the angel on your right shoulder, and the ego is the devil on your left shoulder. And that immediately, once you're literally starting to develop as a baby, you already start to have those. And you've already chosen before you've gotten here whether you're going to be in service to self or in service to others, unless you've chosen to not know and to wing it when you get here. All of those things that are factored into your development is done prior to you coming into each lifetime. You're just unaware of it and don't know it. So your life path, if you've chosen to be, unless you have chosen to say, I'm going to start out being in service to self, and then I want to have the ability to change because I haven't done that yet, or haven't done it in this manner. So I want to start out being in service to self and then have the ability to find my way and change and become. And the other way around. Some people will start out in service to others and then have things happen to them that they'll make that choice to become in service to self. And sometimes people also have the, I need all this strife and things happen to me so that it'll solidify that I will have the test of maybe going down that road and not and refusing to, no matter what they do to me. So you fit somewhere in those spectrums, and that's always individual for each one of us, each one of you, in every lifetime as to how you've chosen your path. And you have to realize that, and that comes in time when you start to realize and start to wake up that oh wow, you look at your life and go, all of this was done on purpose so that I would be exactly where I am now. And it's not just serendipitous, it is in fact organized. And that's part of your ascension, is that realization as well. Okay, let's continue, because I'm sure I'm getting ahead of Raw right now, and we'll get into that, right? So let's continue.
This marks the end of what you may call the unself-conscious or innocent phase of conscious awareness. 30.2 Questioner, thank you. Would you define mind, body, and spirit separately? Ra, I am Ra. These terms are all simplistic descriptive terms which equal a complex of energy focuses, the body, as you call it, being the material of the density which you experience at a given space/time or time/space, this complex of materials being available for distortions of what you would call physical manifestation. The mind is a complex which reflects the inpourings of the spirit and the outpourings of the body complex. It contains what you know as feelings, emotions, and intellectual thoughts in its more conscious complexities. Moving further down the tree of mind, we see the intuition, which is of the nature of the mind, more in contact or in tune with the total beingness complex. Moving down to the roots of mind, we find the progression of consciousness, which gradually turns from the personal to the racial memory, to the cosmic influxes, and thus becomes a direct contactor of that shuttle which we call the spirit complex. This spirit complex is the channel whereby the inpourings from all of the various universal, planetary, and personal inpourings may be funneled into the roots of consciousness, and whereby consciousness may be funneled to the gateway of intelligent infinity through the balanced intelligent energy of body and mind.
See, that's exactly why I said, and let me stop there because I'm sure Raul's going to explain that and I'm getting ahead of myself. So literally, that's what I was saying. The progression of your consciousness from becoming self-aware and the steps that you lead upwards as you ascend to higher knowledge and up to and including infinite wisdom, infinite love, infinity itself. And Rod just said all that exact same thing. So I knew that while I was talking that's why I said, hold on, let me stop here because I think Rod is going to say the same thing. But now, because of what I said, some of you out there will get what Rod just said. I don't have to interpret it because I did it prior, right? Like a prequel. Okay. Let's continue.
You will see by this series of definitive statements that mind, body, and spirit are inextricably intertwined and cannot continue, one without the other. Thus we refer to the mind/body/spirit complex rather than attempting to deal with them separately, for the work, shall we say, that you do during your experiences is done through the interaction of these three components, not
right. Hold on. Let me play this to the end of this and I want to talk about that.
Through any one. 30.3 questioner.
Okay, I thought that was the end of it. All right, so I want to specify, because if you guys look at the reel I posted yesterday, last night, I actually put one image up that says body, soul, spirit, because so many people on this earth right now equate the soul and the spirit as being something completely different, and I usually tell people they're not, but they because they're not, okay, because they're not. However, the soul and the spirit, and you see in the image that I show you, it's a circle and it says body, soul in the middle and spirit in this very center. And I put that there on purpose, and nobody questioned it since I put it up. But if you follow me and I talk about that, you're going to say, well, wait, you told us that the spirit and the soul is the same thing. It is, okay? It's a difference in levels of awareness only. And in truth, it doesn't exist. It's like the id, if you know anything about psychology and you know, what's his name, Freud. Freud talked about the id. And a lot of people went with that for 100 years. And now no one talks about the id. The soul has evolved from the id, okay? And the id is not actually a thing either. But when you have people that are non-spiritual, that are secular, and they're trying to figure out what's going on, they tend to try and explain things in a physical terms and not have anything to do with spirituality. So the id, and then they admitted that there is something. So the human population of this earth is now starting to, as a collective, realize that we're not just a function of this flesh, a piece of flesh inside my skull, and that there is something else. And that originally was the id, and it was described 100 years ago by Freud as a combination of your consciousness, your super consciousness or subconsciousness, and your conscience as one. And that is the mind, body, spirit totality. Okay. So they literally, or just the totality of your spiritual experience, depending on the level that you are of awareness, self-awareness and awareness. And so it's difficult to explain because because the soul is there, and the level of the soul would be when you first realize, wait, I am something more than just this physical body. You haven't ascended to the realization of your own spirit yet, of how much that means and how infinite that is. Once you gain that knowledge, that brings you to infinity, to the infinite wisdom, to the infinite love, to the creator. And once you learn that, you will then ascend to your spirit and go, oh, wait, I am. Okay. And that's the words that were spoken to Moses when he was talking to the burning bush. I am. That is total awareness. When you're unveiled, you are in contact with your spirit. You also are in contact with your higher self, which is in the 6th dimension, and you're aware of that and the beyond. That's when you are now ascending as, and this is why there's a differential in some people's minds. The soul is self-awareness and the awareness of, I am something other than this physical body, and I'm not residing in this this very tender brain inside this skull, that I am outside of that in some way. That's when you're in the soul body, but not the spirit body yet. And then you move above that. So in truth, that's just part of awareness and ascension. But when people need to have it broken down in stages, because some people are linear, 100 years ago, it was the id, and that was a very physical thing that was just inside your mind. And then it wasn't actually something that was outside of this dimension that you are. And the race of the humans have now evolved to acknowledge, wait, we think there is something else. That knowledge has moved them into a soul position of possibility. And until each individual ascends past that to the infinite, that's when your realization of, I am energy, I am a soul, I am part of the creator. All of this is part of the creator. And eventually, you, like I said in that video that I put out from a couple of weeks ago, and then you realize, wait, I am the creator, and this is the creator. It's not something that was created by the creator. It is the creator, and it is being created constantly by all of us who are the creator. That's a high level ideology right there that some people don't get yet, right? But that's when you become soul conscious, okay? That's like eating ascension food. When you become soul conscious, that means conscious and self-aware as a soul, as a spirit above the soul. And you actually know that because you reside there and you're doing that as a normal thing. And once you do that, welcome, Anna. I didn't see if Anna said something, but Rick knows that Anna's here. So welcome. So that's when you become conscious of the infinite and your infinite soul itself, and you start residing there in your upper chakra, which is actually above your crown chakra. Once you start to realize that, that's what you guys would see as soul, separation from soul and spirit. The truth is they're the same. The only difference between anything at all is your perception. That's it. Your perception. That's why we say all the truths we cling to depend greatly on a certain point of view, because your point of view determines your reality. Okay. And that determines how much you realize you're self-aware, or that you will acknowledge of being self-aware. So because of that, linear people need those runs of the steps of the ladder from Jacob's ladder, the 33 runs that are the exact same number of your spinal column and the exact same number that Jesus was when he was crucified after climbing that same ladder. All of those things that are parables to the ascension. And once you climb back up to the God light, to the Godhead, and realize your place, or start realizing your place, then you will associate with the soul and no longer, or with the spirit and no longer the soul. First, you'll associate as a soul, and there's just religions. Some religions say soul, and others say spirit, and some didn't even say that at all. They said pneuma. The Greek said pneuma, which means the soul, the spirit, the spark of life. Then that's what originally what everybody called it, and then it moved into the words that we use now, and the concept changes slightly. But the good thing is, for the human population, is that every time that concept changes, it is raising the bar and allowing people to the realization of that ascension. But we couldn't say that. I couldn't tell you this 40 years ago. I would have to say soul. And then you go to heaven. And because nobody was ready for anything above this, I would say it to people and they would go, oh, man, I bet you believe in UFOs too. Right. And now, I mean, the government is pretty much around the world have admitted that there are people from other planets that are here. Right. I mean, Tucker Carlson just did this last Thursday, not yesterday, but a week ago, Thursday or Friday, he did a 20 some odd, almost 30-minute or 45-minute video where he was talking to a senator who they were both talking about how much the American government has been covering up and how long. This knowledge that we know is true. So they can't deny it anymore. They keep trying, but it's just not working. No one's believing it. And COVID kind of helped a lot of people get past illusions and trusting lying, evil people. Because now, if they tried to say COVID's here and we need to have lockdowns, the majority of the people will tell you, screw off. I'm not doing that crap. Right? They will literally have to start going around and rounding people up and putting them in concentration camps to get people to not do it now. And that will, in this country, will cause a revolution. There's too many people here with guns. They hate that. They're trying to get rid of it. They want to convince everybody, like they have in all the other countries, to give up their guns. If they did that in this country, the whole world already would be taken over. Because any country, and there's a few other countries who keep guns too. If it wasn't for them and it wasn't for America, I'm telling you right now, I don't care what you think about guns. That literally, if it wasn't for the civilian population of this earth that have them, you would be in chains. You would literally be in chains right now. And I'm not saying that because I'm some sort of, because I know that if you're a Democrat right now, you think I'm your enemy. And if you're a Republican right now, you think I'm your enemy. Whatever, if you're a conservative or a progressive, whatever you are if you associate with that religion, I am now your enemy because of what I just said. So that should tell you guys out there something who are paying attention, that both of those sides are actually looking at me as if I'm their enemy. So the one thing that they agree upon, and you have to realize that, all those people in that religion, even if they're not of the politic, but they're on the business side, they're also saying certain things. This is what Ra's warning you about. What are they saying? They don't want you or me to talk about what I'm talking about now. All of them who pretend they're enemies and fight against each other and try to get you to pick one of those two sides, both of them don't like this. You have to ask yourself why that is. Why is it that they don't agree on anything and can't agree on anything until people say, wait, no, I think you're lying to me. And then they both turn and go, how dare you, slave? Shut up. And you know what? I'll show you. And then they go to the companies that I'm broadcasting on and they go, cut that guy off. And they go, yes, sir. Why is that? You got to wonder why that is. That is the questions that you need to be asking. Not, we got to fight against the evil because it's a war, or I have a D after my name, or an R, or whatever you call that in your country. And I got to fight those guys, or I got to be afraid of somebody because they have a different color skin than mine. Okay, these are all the things that they're trying to do to you. That's the modus operandi of the Orion Crusader, that it gave this knowledge to them so that they could blanket all of these things and get you to not see that while you're too busy trying to find something to fight about and taking a stand on everything, you got to fight, no matter what it is. Water, I'm going to fight about that. Whatever it is, the air we breathe, they want you so distracted by all of these things that they put in front of you and tell you have to pick a side on, that you have no idea because you're watching all these little things going on. How dare you say that to me? I can't believe you said that. I can't believe you're doing that. You're so busy fighting and watching everybody else as if you're on their team that they're ripping off all of the wealth and stripping the land of all of its nutrients and taking all of your money from you and telling you that you're doing just fine. Keep doing that. And by the way, what you need to fear is all of them, not us. You got to ask yourself why that is. And if you don't acknowledge that and you don't see it and you think I'm crazy right now, turn the channel, go somewhere else, because you're not ready to hear what I'm going to be talking about. You're not. And I apologize for that. And you're going to just think I'm crazy. You're probably already changing the channel anyways. Okay. For those of you who are still staying around listening to this, whether you're listening on the MP4 broadcast or the MP3 broadcast around the planet, I will continue.
Upon our physical death, as we call it, from this particular density and this particular incarnative experience, We lose this chemical body. Immediately after the loss of this chemical body, do we maintain a different type of body? Is there still a mind/body/spirit complex at that point? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. The mind/body/spirit complex is quite intact. The physical body complex you now associate with the term body being but manifestation of a more dense and intelligently informed and powerful body complex. 30.4 Questioner.
See, so you have to realize that your ascension is supposed to be your movement up the chakras from the lower three chakras below the heart chakra. Then you're supposed to move into the heart chakra and realize the potential. That's when you realize your soul. You realize the potential of the infinite wisdom, infinite love, infinity itself. Once you do that, you start to move into the upper three chakras. And you balance all of those because you are still in the physical body. And once you do that and you start associating with the spiritual, that's when you get to this place. And that's what he's talking about, how then you start to realize that there is a spiritual body. Okay. There is a place where that exists outside of this body and outside of time and space. Okay. And once you start to, that's where you're supposed to be trying to ascend to. And once you start associating with that, then when you realize that, that is when you are capable of graduating and leaving this place, except the fact that they're trying to keep you from doing that. And because they've been trying to keep people from doing that, usually when your life cycle ends and you have the choice, you then are of the mind of, well, I should probably go back and help because the evil people are trying to keep everybody there. Okay. And so what happens is you don't take off because you now are in that place of love. You're starting to realize, because you're in service to others, that you need to return. If you're in service to self, you can't wait to get out of here. And the second you have a shot, you're gone because you hate this place. You hate everybody here and you can't wait to go to the next place. And you think you're going to paradise where you're going to have the 186,000 trillion billion virgins. And then when you go there, you all of a sudden it's just like here, except for your body doesn't look the same. It's not as dense. And now you're in a place that is occupied by all evil people. And now you're the bottom of the run and you're a guppy and everybody else is a dragon. And you got to start all over. That's the truth. That's just the way it works. Okay. So, but you don't know that. So here you become as evil as you want to, and you get the hell out of here. And then you realize you are nobody. For example, I don't know if he's still in that position, but 40 years ago when Ra was talking and Dawn asked, they were talking about Genghis Khan and how evil he was, and that he actually graduated into the fourth dimension on the evil side. And Dawn asked, so where is he now? And he said he is a file clerk or a patent clerk. Okay, so he's just a nobody who works in an office now. But that's not on this planet, because the people that are on this earth in the fourth dimension are not evil. So the separation goes from individual, right, to planet or state or planet. And then eventually it goes to solar system separation and then galaxy separation as you go up into the sixth dimension. So you have this separation that is more apparent, and it's harder for evil to hide from you. So they still attack and they still try to dominate and do that stuff, but they do it from a further distance. So instead of having the person be like your husband or wife or your brother or cousin or father or mother in your own household, it's just in the neighborhood after that. And then it's just in the galaxy after that. So as you move up, the separation is more apparent and it's easier. They can't hide from you like they can down here. So it becomes more obvious, and everybody becomes more focused on what they're supposed to be doing. Here's where all the chaos is, because of the veiling and the chaos as the laws that is governing this place is designed to do what this is doing. You're just supposed to realize that and move up. Okay, let's continue.
Is there any loss to the mind or spirit after this transition, which we call death, or any impairment of either because of the loss of this chemical body that we now have? Ra, I am Ra. In your terms, there is a great loss of mind complex due to the fact that much of the activity of a mental nature of which you are aware during the experience of this space/time continuum is as much of a surface illusion as is the chemical body complex. In other terms, nothing whatever of importance is lost. The character, or, shall we say, pure distillation of emotions and biases or distortions and wisdoms, if you will, becoming obvious for the first time, shall we say, these pure emotions and wisdoms and bias/distortions being, for the most part, either ignored or underestimated during physical life experience. In terms of the spiritual, this channel is then much opened due to the lack of necessity for the forgetting characteristic of third density. 30.5 question.
Okay, before we get to that, we're going to cover what you guys were talking about in the chat. Let me put my glasses on here. So Penny said, I left this place once as a child. I willed it to be, and I stepped out. Well, anyone can do that at any time. So you having that ability as a child is not unheard of, but you chose to come back. So you have to ask yourself why you chose to be still here. Because when you got up there, your guides either told you, and if people have near-death experiences, NDEs, then they literally will say, well, then I got there and they said, it's not your time. You're supposed to go back. And some of them freak out by coming back with some of the knowledge of them saying, well, we're going to take you back to where you came from. And they're like, well, I wasn't going to heaven. I was going back to wherever it was I came from. And that's what that happens, so that you have the realization of something more infinite, because most people believe you live here once and then you die. And if you're good and you have water chucked on you and some old white guy does this and over your face, when he chucks the water on you, that you're going to go to this utopian place and you're going to stand there as a pillar in the eyes of God for the rest of eternity. And that's all you have to do. And so that's the lie that was corrupted in the churches to get you to sit down and wait. Just sit here. Just wait, just be nice. And then you get to go to heaven after this life, and just put up with all this stuff that's going on around you and to you, and you'll be rewarded in the afterlife. That's the lie that they're telling you, so that you think that only you have one life and you go to this place called heaven. Or if you're bad, you go to this place called purgatory or hell. So that freaks people out when they come back. And unless they have someone like myself that's awake enough to guide them and say to them that you shouldn't be afraid of that, and explain why. I tried to do that with a guy who came to that realization after having an NDE. He didn't want to have any part of me telling him anything to give him any kind of knowledge, because he didn't respect me as somebody who knows what he's talking about. So he's been, I don't know if he still is, but that was a couple of years ago, and he was out of his mind, freaking out, scared to death about the ramifications of something that his ego was telling him now. And he was buying into the fear and going, it could be this or that. And all those guys talking about us being in a prison, and that there's a penal colony, and there's these evil people that are our overlords, even of our souls. And he was buying all that narrative, which is the lie that they're teaching you. When you start to gain that knowledge, if nobody is there to tell you what's actually happening, they bombard you with all this stuff that tells you, just sit down here, man, because you're just stuck here and you can never leave, man. So, and then Anna says, I have no idea what chakra I'm vibrating at right now. I'm physically here, but spiritually body, I have no idea. I'm so spacey at the moment. It's trippy. Well, this time of year, I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. This time of year, you have to realize that the cycle of the planet, let me take my glasses off, because otherwise you guys are just seeing glare from the screen and you can't see my eyes. The cycle of the planet works on the cycle of the chakras, but the planet itself works on a 12-month cycle, and it goes through from the first red ray root chakra in springtime, which is March, April, and then goes through the progression of all of the chakras in a 1-year time period. And we are now in December, and December is the third eye chakra. It is the darkness before the dawn. This is the awakening of the third eye. Happens as we go back around now. At the darkest point is when you become conscious of that third eye, but it's not awake yet. And so this time is a time of sleeping. It's also in the representation of the European religions and all other religions around the world, if you really pay attention, but specifically the European religions, non-Christianity. But Christianity says Jesus was born on the solstice in December, which before that he was born in July, which is odd. And then all of a sudden he was born in December, when they were trying to get all of the Celts and Vikings under their control, who were buying into, and the Greeks, who were buying into the idea that there's a God who has now died. and that he has impregnated the goddess, and she is gestating him now in her womb, and he's going to be reborn as the life giver in springtime. And the reason that all of this is the way it is, everything is going into darkness and dying because the God who sustains the world with life is no longer alive on the planet. He is in the womb of his beloved and betrothed, and she's going to give birth to him in March, and then he's going to give birth and life to the world and start the cycle brand new. And then as he grows up, this is the Green Man from Europe. I have that tattooed on my back because I am a Merlin. I am the Green Man. Literally, I do. I have, it's like this big around. It takes up like almost half of my back, and then I have the God and Goddess, Viking God and Goddess tattooed on either shoulder. And then, of course, the only thing that doesn't fit to that is the biohazard symbol I have just on the part of my back right below my neck, biohazard symbol. So it literally covers all of my back from my waist up, is covered with those. All of my tattoos are, except for the biohazard symbol, but that's kind of religious too. All of my tattoos are spiritual and religious that I have on my body. So literally that's the cycle. Now we're in that cycle, and if you're a Christian or a Roman Catholic, this is Lent. This is the time when before Jesus is born, when there is nothing, and then Jesus is born in December and then brings in spring, and that's when, of course, they say is the death and resurrection of Jesus to explain the God being reborn. Okay, so they changed the story of all of that and the timeline to fit, but the story was the same because the Savior character is the same, and that's exactly the same time of year that Thor was cast out of Valhalla by his father and sent down to Earth. Sound familiar? Coming down to Earth in Earth form and being immortal, not immortal, but amortal, and then he couldn't lift his own Mjolnir, the hammer of war, which means thunder, means lightning. Thor means thunder, means lightning. He couldn't lift it because he had to prove himself worthy. So he had to live here amongst the people. That's descension into hell, going to Bethlehem, and then being reborn, and he had to ascend. And then he could draw the hammer from the stone, the sword from the stone, and then go back up and ascend back to Valhalla, okay, back to heaven, and come there and crack the sky with his lightning bolt and illuminate. That's the same ascension as the Jesus character. That happened in the same cycle of the planet, by the way. Okay, so this is the dark time of Ragnarok when Thor is down on Earth, and he is going to ascend back going through the darkest time into spring, and then the illumination of him chasing Fenrir the wolf from the sky happens every year when winter ends and summer and spring begins. That's him cracking the sky with lightning and thunder and the battle of the gods during the darkest time of winter. And then all of it disappears and the frost giants are defeated and the frost wanes and the clouds go away and you start seeing the sun. And then life starts. That's Thor, and being back in Valhalla and righting all of the universe, including Midgard, and defeating the frost giants and Surtur. And now you have life again. That happens on every year. So when you look at all the religions, you see they have the same version of it. And it's all based on the cycle of the planet itself, which is a 12 moon, 13 originally moon cycle. And that happens to be coincide with all of the chakras. Okay. And as you're ascending, so everybody goes through the cycle, whether they're aware of it or not. And this time period of the year is the darkest time, but it's also the most spiritual. So we all, to get to you, Anna, again, we all go into this place that is in the higher realms of our chakras at this time of year, whether we are aware of it or not, whether we choose to be there or not. Even the people that are in service to self are still in this place, and they hate it the worst. So they've utilized this to make money because they can't stop the rest of the people from doing it. So then now what they're doing is capitalizing on it. to capitalize. Capitalism. They're capitalizing on it for their profit in the physical by tricking everybody to go and spend money to buy the stuff they need to celebrate all of this stuff, and not letting them know this is a spiritual time of the year. This is a time of reflection. This is a time of looking within yourself. The winter drives everybody inside, so you're not outside as much. Then it's covered in the same darkness that your third eye is covered in. All of these things are playing out in the physical on purpose, and then people get depressed. What does that word mean? Held down, depressed when there's too many clouds for too long. Why? And then they pray. And if you're a Viking, you would be like Odin. Please send Thor. Thor cracked open the sky with your hammer of war and illuminate. Jesus, rise, show us the way. Whatever your religion, there is a version of that. Same thing. Hercules, go and find the golden fleece. The golden fleece was the illumination. So he had to go and bring back the golden fleece, and that did what? Protected the world and illuminated everyone. That's the same story of that. And was it Hercules who was doing that, or was it Jason and the Argonauts? It doesn't matter, because it's still the same story, right? So whatever. And then the other one would be, if you go back far enough, Marduk challenging Tiamat, his grandmother. And she covered the world in darkness, and he had to go and defeat her to illuminate the world. And he shows up with his bow and spear, which sounds familiar, doesn't it? With the hammer of war and the spear of destiny, or the spear of Odin, or Shiva with Shiva's lightning rod. That he held in his hand in the war of the gods that happens in the sky. It's the same savior character doing the same thing with electricity or illuminating in some way. The trident of both Poseidon and what was the other name that they used? The Greeks and the Romans had a different name for the same god. And literally that pitchfork that he had was controlled the weather and cracked the sky with its lightning. It's the same exact character around the world that's doing the same thing. That's the cycle that you're in right now. You're in the darkness, the Kali Yuga, the Ragnarok, the time of tribulation, the time of trouble, the end times. This is the end of the year cycle that we count on this planet, the last month before we go into the new year. We know that it renews, but it doesn't. It's still, January is still considered winter, but it's past that point of the midpoint of Midgard of the darkness, and that it's going back into light. And then in springtime, everything, all the animals have sex and have kids, and all the plants grow, and everybody's prosperous, and the energy is happy, and it's exciting, and everybody's dancing around. And it's not just because the sun's come out and it's sunny out, but that's part of it. So you're in that cycle right now, and you have to realize that I am one with the universe. That's why the Force, when they say that, and they did that primarily a lot in Rogue Squadron, in Star Wars Rogue Squadron, that movie Rogue One, where they were literally saying, I am one with the Force is one with me. That is what you are. I am one with Yggdrasil, the tree of life, and Yggdrasil is one with me. I am one with Jesus. I am one with God. I am one, and I accept God into my soul and my heart. Those are all the same exact thing that you're saying in a different religion. Assalamu alaikum, alaikum salam. Okay, you're saying the same thing. Allah Akbar, right? You're saying the same thing. Peace be upon you. Peace be with you. Okay, you're saying the same things in different languages, in different religions, and it's based on the same cycle of the planet. And that cycle of the planet is there every single year, showing you what you're supposed to be going through and pulling you up through your chakra points, and then bringing you back down to Earth, to the red raised chakra that is the beginning in spring, and then pulling you back up through all of that again, and then back down every year. And so you don't realize that subliminally, through osmosis, the ascension is happening before your eyes. That's why I put out that reel that showed the changing of the seasons, where all the leaves were turning orange, yellow, orange, and red. And I literally said, the earth is changing every second. It's okay for you to change. That is why I did that. That is the cycle of the earth. And most people see it more drastically when the green man becomes the burnt man, and the burning man in the desert, and all of those things happen, and the leaves fall. Autumn going into winter is so stark from the life dying to nothingness that people recognize that more than they do the blooming of spring. But then again, that is half empty, half full. Another reason why I posted that, for perspective as well. All of the reels that I just posted in the last 2 weeks have to do with this time of year and the ascension. I don't do anything on accident. I do everything timed and on purpose, going through. And I focused a little bit more on the holidays last year and a little bit this year than I am right now. And there's a reason for that, taking you through a progression as well. So if you go back to last year and look at what I posted last year at this time, you're going to see that I was doing the same thing in a different way, because I'm showing you the progression. Everything that I do has to do with when I posted my stuff. And that has to do with the chakras that are being activated in you at the time. And you individually every month go through that same 33 level 12 chakra, 13 chakra thing once a month. You do this. So the cycle is literally within you every day, every hour, every minute, every second. And then going the other way, it's every day, every week, every month, every year, and your entire life. And then your entire process as a spirit as well. Do you see? As below, so above, as within, so without. That applies to everything. So if you're in a confused state right now, the veil is just closed, the God has just died, and we are going into the darkest time. And if you're living in the other half of the world, you're on the opposite cycle, and you're in the hottest part, where you're also not getting any communication from your higher self, because now you're going into and starting, because you'd be in summer now, right? So if you're in the southern hemisphere, you've just gone through all of the excitement of spring, and now you're wondering why you're not getting any information from your higher self. That ceases as the veil thins, because you're supposed to move from the physical into the spiritual. Then when you do that, the veil closes again, and that's the God dying, and now you're in darkness, the Ragnarok, and it's weighing heavy on you, and you're supposed to look within yourself and reach up to the universe in this dark time. And so the physical universe makes it really hot and uncomfortable for you. And then that's the vulcanization. That is the God getting ready to die, and the death throes of the life on this planet. And that burns all of everything in the heat, and then it goes in and everything dies, and then you go into this. So this cycle is what you're going through. Wherever you are, you're on the planet, you're in part of that cycle, and you should be aware of that and this is why we tell you to go out in nature and pay attention to nature, because that cycle is running you. The moon is also working on you. The tides are working on you. The planet itself is working on you. And then, so it literally day to day, month to month, year to year, you're going through the same cycle. It's a cyclical nature of 1 through 13, 1 through 13, or 1 through 12, and then going back to the center. So it's 3, 6, and 9, guys. It's the Taurus, right, that has a 0 point, and you keep returning to the 0 point. And this is where, if you're in December in the northern hemisphere of the planet, you're going to the 0 point now. If you are in the other side of the planet, the southern half of the planet, you're on your way out. You're on your way out from 0 point, and you're at the peak, and you're flipping back over to come back in now. You're at summertime, getting ready. We're going into winter. You're starting summer, and you're about to go into fall in a couple of months. That is you now starting your journey back towards your ascending. Okay, so in December in the northern hemisphere, you're in the darkness. You're about to illuminate. If you're in the southern hemisphere, you're about to be in the darkness. You're going from the illumination into darkness, and wherever you are on this planet is one of those. You're somewhere on that whole spectrum, depending on where you live. Okay, and you're supposed to learn that. You're supposed to realize that. I apologize, I haven't been reading what you guys are posting. I've just been talking, right? So, and then the day, right? And then you have day going from, Melissa, welcome, by the way. And then you have the day going from dawn to dusk and going into darkness. That's the same cycle that you go through every day, from the sun rising bringing life to the world, and then going through the same progression, and then going into twilight. Twilight would be fall, autumn, right? And then whatever that cycle is, because if you're in the southern hemisphere and you're on this calendar, the calendar is based on the northern hemisphere, so December is not the coldest time of the year for you. So your cycle is backwards, and you have to figure out what the darkest time of the year is, and that would be what they say is the December. So they have all of you guys living by the north, and you're on the opposite cycle in truth from the north, because you're in the south. Okay, the southern hemisphere of the planet, but they have you on the month calendar, and so Christmas comes, and you guys are backwards, and you're celebrating Christmas at the wrong time of the year, because it's not truly Christmas for you. Christmas for you is 6 months ago or 6 months from now, right? And that's the actual cycle of what you're supposed to be doing. But you're on this Greco-Roman calendar, which says that Christmas is now, because the churches have decided that Jesus was born on December 25th. So now you have to have a tree and decorate down there in the middle of summer. And it's not when you're supposed to be doing that. You should be doing that when it is winter for you. Okay. So you should change. You can do what you want to do, but the only reason that the calendar is the way it is retail wants your money. So they're going to want everybody on the planet buying the same shit at the same time. But the truth is, it's the bottom half or it's actually the top half, but everybody thinks that the northern hemisphere is the top half. Southern hemisphere is actually the top half of our Earth. The energy comes out through the northern or through the southern hemisphere and comes around and goes in through the top of the northern hemisphere. So if you were to say which is the polarization, which is positive and which is negative, what we say is positive is actually positive because the energy comes in. But everybody thinks that positive means energy goes out. It's the opposite. Okay. Negative is negative. The energy is flowing away. Right. And that's actually should be positive. And so again, they've corrupted things. So it's backwards, so that you think positive is receiving, which it is in a sense. Right. So so it doesn't really matter which is which, because as long as you understand that the northern hemisphere of the Earth is where the energy comes into the Earth, and the southern hemisphere of the Earth is where the energy comes out of. Okay. So that would be the male and the female, right? The male having the phallus and the female having the womb. And so the female is the more positive, because the truth is the phallus is the warlike aggression, lower three chakras, and the feminine and the representation of as feminine as women, or any being who is feminine. Doesn't matter what your plus. I can't even say how many pluses anymore. Plus to infinity. So it's LGBTQ plus to the third power now, right? And that acknowledges everybody that I don't know of, because every country has added 2 or 3 that no one else knows about. Right? Official. Right? And we all fit somewhere on that spectrum, because we do, right? Whatever you associate with. There's even people who associate with a wolf and a goat on that spectrum in some countries. Okay. And I'm not saying that because I'm trying to make fun of it. I'm just saying that because that's how silly it's gotten. Because you can identify as a goldfish now and get a plus, right? So, and I mean, that is kind of silly, but it's true. Okay. So once you start to realize these things, you can then realize where you are. And then you have to look within yourself and see, where am I on my own personal cycle? And I've been trying to teach you guys this as time goes. I'm going to write more about it in my next book. Okay. I'm going to have to, because the world needs to know this. So you have a personal cycle, but then the Earth has a cycle that is a 24-hour one. There's that number, 2 12s, day and night. Why is that? Because there is a lot of night on the Earth. Some places up in the north and in the far south, it stays dark and it only goes to twilight at a certain time of the year, depending on where the Earth is. Right now, say this is the sun. Right now, the Earth is above the sun. That's why the northern hemisphere is going into winter and the southern hemisphere is in summertime. And then our orbit's going to take us around, and we're going to come down and go below the sun. This is the way our orbit goes, like this around the sun. We don't go straight around it at its equator. We go up and down, up and down. And that's what causes our cycle. So as we go down below the sun, the Earth, then the northern hemisphere gets more of the sunlight. So that becomes summer. And then we move. So right now the Earth is moving up, and it's almost to the highest point. at the solstice, which is between December 21st and 24th, usually about 23 and a half. But we always celebrate it around the 21st or 22nd. Because if you do that on the 22nd, it's actually the 23rd on the other side, on the lower part of the earth, or the other part, depending on where you are on the time zone. So because we have a 24-hour thing, the real now is relative. It's all in your perspective where you are. Truthfully, where your physical body is on the earth is going to say what time it is right now. Okay. So the solstice is when the earth is at its apex above the sun in its orbit, and then it starts to drift back down. And that's when the solstice for winter solstice, the midpoint of winter, will happen, and then we go down. If you don't know that cycle, you have no idea what's going on, and you just know that it's winter, and you don't know that storms affect you and why. This is why we're trying to teach this stuff to everybody out there. But you have to know to look or to ask, because if you don't, then you don't know this stuff because it's not taught to you readily. This is the shit that we're trying to change in the world, and we're starting a movement to do so. And you're going to see that happening more and more in the next 3 to 5, definitely in the next 10 to 20 years, depending on how long you live. 30, 40, 50 years from now, you're going to see a drastic change in this earth itself. And we're not saying that because we're hoping that that's going to happen. This is actually the time when it is. That's why you see the strife in the world the way you see it. And you see these people that are evil, that are trying to hold on to the status quo the way it's been for so long, fighting so hard to stop this because they know it's coming. They know it's coming. And they know they can't stop it. So they're trying to figure out how they can frickin' do it to stop this thing from happening. Because that's what they've been able to do for a long time, for thousands of years. But they don't want to acknowledge that that cycle is over now. And they're fighting against it as hard as they can. Doesn't matter. You can't change the cycle of the universe. It's going to run them over. And they won't admit it. Because to admit that is to admit their own defeat. And they can't, because they live in the now, in the physical, in the flesh. And they have to believe they're in charge and they own this place and you're all slaves at all cost, because otherwise their ego dies. And then they have to admit that all of this other stuff is real. And the second they do that, they know, even the ones who don't know on a subconscious level know that the second they do that, it's over for them. So they didn't teach that in the movies from Star Wars. They did teach you, once you start down the dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny. But they didn't teach the other part and say it out loud. They did in the books, but they didn't put it in the movies. Why? Because the people wanted it out. Just like they didn't say it in the Matrix either. Once you start down the path of light, forever will it dominate your destiny as well, if you're a Sith. They didn't show you that in the movies. If you read the books, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. So they literally were trying to show you that, but they couldn't. Okay. So let's continue. And hopefully that it helped explain, but you're supposed to pay attention. You're supposed to learn that stuff and become aware of it. That's the most important thing, to become aware of it and then start looking. And that's why we tell you to go out in nature and get attuned to it. Because if you do, and you're living, they're trying to make you live outside the cycle of nature. And that's what they've done successfully with grabbing a hold of retail. They have all the people in the Southern Hemisphere living completely opposite of what they should be living on the cycle of the earth. And they change the whole cycle of the earth to their version of now, which has to do with them making money. Truly. That's all of that is part of what needs to change here. Everybody needs to be doing things on the cycle that they're in personally and regionally. Okay? That is what's supposed to be happening and what used to happen on this earth in the old days, quote unquote. And this is why we have and are coining that phrase, returning to the old ways. Because the truth is, all of you in the Southern Hemisphere, the further south you go, you guys are in summertime right now. You're not supposed to be doing Christmas. You guys are supposed to be doing summer. Okay? Only the people in the north are supposed to be doing Christmas. And when that changes, you are going to see this planet right itself in a very, very quick minute. When everybody stops listening to the Greco-Roman calendar and retail and business minds and doing what they tell you to do when they tell you to do it, and start doing things by the cycle of the earth and your personal cycle, despite everything that they say to do. Once you return to that, literally you're going to have the other half of the planet, the lower half, the southern half, which is really the top half. You're going to have that entire cycle switch. And when that happens, I'm telling you, this earth is going to change very quickly, and everyone's going to know it. That's going to be the rapture. You're not going to have a billion people just disappear off the earth like they're saying. It's a commercial on television where they're saying, get ready because the rapture is going to happen and people are literally just going to disappear. And they film it and they show people just going bink and being gone. And you're going to be the left behind. Be afraid, buy my book, and I'll tell you what you need to do. And then they're going to be like, come in my house over here, sit down, pay me a tithing. We'll throw some water on your head and wave our hand at you, and then you're going to be fine. Because they know they can get away with telling you that, because they know there's never going to be that rapture that they're telling you about. It's not going to happen ever. So they will never be proved a liar, because it's just not going to happen. They'll be like, well, it's not time yet. We don't know. God's going to come like a thief in the night. We have no idea when that is, but we all got to be ready right now, just in case. And they've been saying that for 2,000 years. Well, it's because it hasn't happened yet. Well, Nostradamus and the people who believe Nostradamus say the same thing. It just hasn't happened yet. And you same people go, that's why Nostradamus is full of crap. Because you could just wait and eventually something will happen and you'll say, there it is. Yeah, the rapture. Same thing. They got to wait and wait and wait and wait. And then if like a billion people all of a sudden die because somebody murders them all or blows them up or gives them the coup and they all die, they'll go, this might be the rapture. It's the end. Quick, come into here and give us some more money. Might be. Send me money, send me green. Heaven you will meet. Make your contribution and we'll get you a better seat. Hurry. Bow to leper Messiah. And that's what they do every time. None of it is true. All right, let's continue.
I would like to know how the mind/body/spirit complexes originate. How, going back as far as necessary, do they originate by spirit forming mind and mind forming body? Can you tell me this? Ra, I am Ra. We ask you to consider that you are attempting to trace evolution.
See, now, Anna, if that's true, Anna said they won't change it down here, even though we have Christmas in July, but not the official Christmas. So now, are you saying the month of July, right? Or the season of July? Because you guys should be having Christmas on the season of July, because that's the true Christmas for the Southern Hemisphere. That's my point. So if you guys are actually doing a Christmas, even though it's not the official one, don't change that. That's actually the right way, because you should be having Christmas in July down there, because that is because that's opposite of up here. Okay. So yeah, it shouldn't be in December, right? But what you're doing, I see what you're saying, because what you're doing is you're saying it's summer for you, but it's not summer in July down there, is it? Because it's summer up here. So if it's summer for me, it can't be summer for you. So July for you, isn't that winter time, not summer, right? So if that's the case, then that's actually the correct time when you should be doing Christmas. It has nothing to do with Christ Mass. Christmas has nothing to do with that at all. They changed that when they were trying to conquer the North. Okay. For that 1,000 years when they built Hadrian's Wall and moved forward back in the year 32 to 110, and then moving forward when they were trying to conquer everybody in the North, the Romans, that's when they changed to tell, well, look, your God is our God. Your God dies at the same time that Jesus died. And then he was resurrected at the same time your God was resurrected. Oh, wait, no, that doesn't work. So our God's born at the same time your God dies, but then he dies and is resurrected at the exact same time your God's born. So it's technically the same God. And that's how they tried to get them to convert. So if you guys are actually, because July for you, and I believe it's the wintertime for you, right? So that's when you should be celebrating that holiday. It should be just like what's happening to us up here. Okay. But the cycle, because, and then let me get back to explaining why you're feeling the way you are, because they've gotten everybody else switched to December being the Christmas thing by your religion. It's changed the dynamic of what's happening in the energy. So now that it's December for you, which is the middle of summer, you're feeling like it's December in the north because they've changed the cycle of the planet. That's why the planet's tilted 23.5 degrees off of plumb. Okay, that being off that degree is the degree that the entire species is off from being in the right place. Science won't let you know that. Some people in science are starting to realize that. The moon is here holding the ecosystem in place. And as the Earth is slowly tilting back from that, right now it's 23.5 degrees, as it's tilting back up, and it's also 11.4 degrees off of land north compared to magnetic north, which I posted as reels. When it shifts up to that and then shifts further so that the land north is, because that's off kilter because they screwed up things during Atlantis. Otherwise, that would have been in the right place when we got back to magnetic north. When it moves back, it's going to go past. So when magnetic north and landmass north is going to line up, but it's still going to be off by 21.5 degrees or 21.9. No, 21.1 degrees. Yes, it's off. It'll go 21.1 degrees. No, not 21. 11 point. It's going to go 11 point, almost 11.4 like it is now. It's going to go that at same distance. So it's 11.4, 11.5 now. It's going to go to 11.4 or 11.5 the opposite way. And that's when the Earth is going to be truly upright. Okay, the landmass is off because of Atlantis. So the landmass will never line back up until the planet rights itself, and then it'll slowly shift. The landmass will. And if it happens all at once, it's going to be a catastrophe for the planet, right? That might be the Christian when they're going to go, look, it's the rapture, and because like 75% of the Earth will die if that thing happens, be just like what happened during the flood. So we don't believe that's the way it's going to go, but it's going to shift that 11.5 degrees off kilter from where it is now, and then slowly right itself. But the Earth itself will be righted, and the energy will shift back to north and south the way it's supposed to be polarized. Okay. Where the energy comes out the bottom and goes in the top the proper way. And then the cycle of all the people living all over the planet will be adjusted to literally localized to where they are. And that will shift us, and we won't have the same problem with our ecosystem and our seasons. Because right now, because of the tilt that we have, we're having these seasons. And if we go back to upright, even if we're doing this, the seasons won't be as definite the way they are now. So they'll be lessened, so they won't be so extreme. And by doing so, what will happen is we will have mostly spring-like weather, but the time will change like it does now. So the light will stay light longer, and then it'll get the days will get shorter and the days will get longer, but the temperate zone of the Earth will be like it is on the equator. It won't be as hot. It'll be only hot on the equator, and then it'll get cooler as you go north and south. But it's going to be perpetually just past spring, not quite summer, for the whole Earth. And you'll have summer at the prime meridian at the equator. And then you'll go closer to winter at the poles the way it's supposed to be, because they will perpetually be at the same distance away from the sun. And then it'll just change light and dark. The days will go long, short, and that'll cause melting and snow. So you'll have more winter in the north and south, and you won't have winter in the middle at all. Winter will now become, the day is shorter, then the day is longer, then the day is shorter, and then the day is longer, and that's it. It'll be a temperate zone. They don't want that either. But then the moon is going to move away from us. It's moving away from us now. As the Earth is slowly tilting back up, the moon is no longer needed. So eventually the moon will go back into an orbit that'll stay stationary out there, but it will no longer affect our tides. The reason the ecosystem works is because of the moon right now. Eventually we won't need it. Science is starting to realize that. Okay. But that'll all change when the people change. When the people change, then the earth will change, and everybody will right the earth, and then the earth itself will change, and then the moon won't be needed anymore, and it'll go back to the way it was before the moon was here. Most humans don't know that. They don't know how off this planet is and why. So because of that, your cycle is out of whack because they're trying to force the north cycle on the south. So those of you who are fighting against it, good for you. If you guys are actually doing that in Australia, keep it up, because eventually you're going to be on that cycle anyways. So I'm glad that you guys down there have kept it and that you are. I was unaware of that, but I'm glad. And anybody else in the Southern Hemisphere, wherever you are, if you guys are on that same cycle and you're like, no, we're doing Christmas in July, you should be. You don't need to be doing it in December, because December for you is July. Do you see? Because that's when the actual cycle of the planet is in that darkest time. Okay. So I didn't know that. I'm glad. See, you taught me something. God, I always love, I hope that every day I learn something new, and I'm glad, Anna, I'm going to give you credit for today. You taught me at least, well, I learned a couple of things earlier, but you taught me a good one, a big one that I was unaware of, that there is that cycle down there. Okay, let's continue.
Evolution is as we have previously described, the consciousness being first, in first density, without movement, a random thing. Whether you may call this mind or body complex is a semantic problem. We call it mind/body complex, recognizing always that in the simplest iota of this complex exists in its entirety the one infinite creator. This mind/body complex then in second density discovering the growing and turning towards the light, thus awakening what you may call the spirit complex, that which intensifies the upward spiraling towards the love and light of the infinite creator.
See, that's where you go from soul to spirit. Do you see? So you're supposed to naturally, when you're in second dimension, you start to then turn upward towards the light and then become self-aware. When you become self-aware, you're now residing in the soul. And then when you realize I am not this physical body, that's when you become real. That's when you realize the spirit. And then you're supposed to move into that. And that's the only reason why I say it doesn't really exist, because you're always the spirit, but you're not aware of that until you become aware. And then when you become self-aware, you're only aware slightly. And it's not until you wake up that you realize, oh, I am the spirit. Okay. And so for those of us who are not veiled, we're like, it doesn't exist. But then in truth, you don't know that. So because you don't know that, it does kind of exist as a separation, soul, then spirit. And we'll go with that because that helps the realization to wake people up that there's steps. And if the people know there's a step there, they know there's the next one and they start looking for it. So we don't teach that it's completely not there, because you need to have those runs to pull you to the next level. So you need to have something to look forward to. And the only way you can look forward to that is to know that you're supposed to be climbing. There is a ladder. And if you recognize there is a ladder and I'm on this step, that means there's another one and another one and another one. How far do they go? And once you start asking that question, we answer it for you. There's 33 runs, 33 steps. Where does that go? I'm glad you asked. And that's how your progression starts. Let's continue.
The addition of this spirit complex, though apparent rather than real, it having existed potentially from the beginning of space/time, perfects itself by graduation into third density. When the mind/body/spirit complex becomes aware of the possibility of service to self or other self, then
I didn't see that you guys both wrote that, but I'm glad you guys both wrote that. I'm glad that you guys are doing that down there, right? As Anna said, Rick and I both wrote that at the same time about Christmas in July. That good on to you, right? I was unaware of that. That's weird. I've never asked that question. I haven't, but I do know that they're trying to get you to do it now, right? They're trying to get you all because of the religions and all of that. Why? Because they want the money. They're desperate to keep you off of the normal cycle of the earth, to keep the earth off its normal cycle. So that, because if everybody gets on the right cycle, depending on where they are located and where they are individually and where they are each day, each month, each year individually, if you're completely on those right cycles, this system works within 7 to 10 years, and everybody, or not in 7 to 10 years, 7 to 10 life cycles. And then you're able to go out of here and ascend. They say we need to keep the population at about 600,000, but secretly they don't want to do that. because they wouldn't make all the money they're making and be as famous as they are and be as powerful as they are over so many people. So they teach you that, and they let it be known, well, truthfully, we need to kill off all these people. The only reason they want to kill off people is because too many people are waking up and it's interfering with their money. But they really want to have 7 billion humans, but they want them all to be asleep. If they could keep all 7 billion asleep in a state that they could control, that's why they say, well, in truth, we need to annihilate most of them and get them back to 600,000 because then they're manageable. That means they can keep 600,000 people asleep for infinite, forever. That's just not the way the ecosystem works anywhere, right? So they're fighting against a cause they should realize is a losing cause, but they can't admit that to themselves because then that would change their dynamic as well. So they have to fight against it. They have to deny. I remember over here in America when a guy was suing to stop the Pledge of Allegiance in the school because it said one nation under God, and he was an atheist. He didn't want his son involved in it. When he went to court, he said, I defy your God. Not I deny. Not I deny your God. Not I don't believe your God exists, but I defy your God. That means I know God exists, but I hate him. That was an admission of evil. And most people didn't catch that. And when that happened, this was like 30 years ago, I was like, that guy's evil. He didn't say, I deny your God. He said, I defy your God. That means I know God is there, even though he's claiming he's an atheist. I don't believe in God. But well, then why would you say you defy? If you don't believe in something, you can't defy it, because to defy it means you recognize it and don't like it and hate it. But he didn't say, I defy your knowledge of your God. I defy your God. That's what he said. I looked that up because when I heard it on the news, I said, that can't be right. They must have misquoted him. And he said, I deny your God. Because if he said, I defy your God, he's not actually an atheist because he believes God exists, but he hates God. That means he's evil. Evil. And that means that everything he's doing has nothing to do with, I'm trying to protect my son because you guys have made up a fake thing that you call God, and I don't want my son to believe that. That's not what he's saying, even though those are the words he's saying. But then when he says, I defy God, what he's saying is, I know that God's real, and I don't want my son to know about it, and I can't stand your freaking God, and I hate him. Evil, 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 evil. I am evil. That's why I would say that's the only reason. Otherwise, you would just say your God doesn't exist. Don't believe in it. So, because if you're truly an atheist, you don't believe there's a devil either. You believe all of that is just made up to make money. So you would never defy, you would never hate, I defy your God. I defy your devil. He didn't say that. If he would have added both of those, it still acknowledges by its very wording, it's very telling. It was a Freudian slip. Means that he believes in the God that he's claiming he doesn't believe in, and he hates that God. And I said that, and I was like, guys, you can't let this guy win now because he just admitted that he believes in that God. I hate your God is what he said. Hate your God. Hate the idea of it. Doesn't mean he doesn't believe in it. And what he's suing over, he's claiming, I don't believe in it and I don't want my son exposed to it. What's the reason? Because I hate him. Because I hate your God. That's the reason. Let's continue.
The mind/body/spirit complex is activated. 30.6 Questioner. Thank you. I don't wish to cover ground that we have covered before, but it sometimes is helpful to read.
Right? Anna said that, and I know that to be true. She said exactly, Leo. Phoenix, Arizona has a big Christmas in July simply because it makes money. Right. I know. I used to live there. I lived 45 minutes east of Phoenix, Arizona. I lived in Queen Creek, Arizona for 5 years. You're absolutely right. But then that's the same festival. I play World of Warcraft, and they have a summer festival in July. But you're right. They're using that to make money because there's a large number of people who came from Australia that lived there. So they started up that Christmas in July because some people from around the world do that. And they have commercials on TV, Christmas in July. You're absolutely right. But why? Again, capitalization. To capitalize. They're trying to make money in the summertime on anything they can because there's nothing going on. There's no holiday. So they got to pick one up and add it to the list of what, because there's a holiday every month, literally every day. And I've noticed they have that around the world and it's different days. or different things on the same day, depending on your country. That over here one day was, Taco Day, National Taco Day in the United States. And then I looked online and found out that was like, National Hamburger Day in Europe. And in Australia, it was National Pizza Day or something. So they have different, depending on your area, they have different days that apply to you guys on the same day that they have a different day in America because something else applies to those people regionally. But they do all of that, same thing with the holidays. So that is why they do that. I worked in retail for 12 years as a manager. That's why they do that. I remember, going into Christmas, you have Kwanzaa, you have Hanukkah, then you have Christmas, and then you have other people from around the world who have holidays on the solstice. And most of your stores, they pick the biggest one they're going to make the most money off of. In Phoenix, Arizona, Phoenix, the rising bird, the bird of summer, fire, they have to do something in the summertime because it's the hottest point of the year and everybody's hiding inside and won't do anything. So they're like barbecue and Christmas. And you're right, they do that. I was there and I was like, what the hell is this Christmas in July going on out here in the desert? And my wife was like, yeah, it has something to do with the seasons of the South. And that was when I was like, well, yeah, that is for July is winter for the South. And she was like, yeah, for some reason they celebrate it out here because it's fire and Phoenix. Right? That's hilarious. I didn't know that you were aware of that.
State these concepts for complete clarity since words are a poor tool for what we do. Just as a passing point, I was wondering, on this planet during the second density I believe there was habitation at the same time/space of bipedal entities and what we call the dinosaurs. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. 30.7 Questioner, these two types of entities seem to be incompatible, you might say, with each other. I don't know. Can you tell me the reason behind both types of entities inhabiting the same space/time? Ra, I am Ra. Consider the workings of free will as applied to evolution. There are paths that the mind/body complex follows in it.
Oh, I didn't have my glasses on, Mel, so I love it when Leo calls me Anna. I apologize if I did. I don't have my glasses on, so I'm thinking that what happens is if I look up and I see somebody's name and you guys say something and it moves, then all of a sudden I get confused. And so I apologize, Mel, if I said Anna, I meant, right? I apologize for that. I did, didn't I? I realize that now, even though because I moved closer, I can see better. If I'm back here, one eye sees better. And if I'm up close, the other eye sees better. I have the weird vision of Odin, where one eye sees really good far away and one eye sees really good up close. No joke. So I apologize that I was doing that. Right. And you're over here in America and I was unaware of that and thought you were in Australia too. I don't know why your guys' energy is very similar. And I don't know why that I did that, because you're right. I did that before and thought you were in Australia and you're in Washington State. Right. And so I just did it down here thinking, because I was seeing Anna and then you said something and here both, and Mel's like, what's the deal? And Anna's like, dude, what's the deal? That's Mel and I'm Anna. I apologize, but your guys' energy is in a weird way similar. I don't know if you guys talk to each other, because you should. You guys are weirdly a lot alike in your energy. But if I had my glasses on, I wouldn't have that issue because I would be seeing exactly who I'm talking to. So I apologize for doing that. I do. It's embarrassing, but if I don't have it, but if I have my glasses on, I know that all you guys see is the glare. You don't get to see my actual eyes. You see glasses and a glare that's on there. So I try to take it off. But if I'm not really looking to find out who I'm talking to, then for some reason, I get confused with your guys' energy. It's weird. Like I said, I don't know if you guys know one another, but you might want to talk to one another if you don't, because your energies are a lot weirdly similar in a way that is more so than most people. Like you guys are a twin soul in some ways. I think you guys came here together is one of the reasons. Because now that I'm looking and I'm seeing, the energy of everyone in here, I think you guys are a little bit closer. You guys are distances apart. One's in Australia and the other one's in Washington State, closer to me. But you guys got here on the same bus. You might want to look into that and start talking to each other and see if that helps you to realize that. But you guys came here on the same bus. And I think that's why I'm recognizing that and overlapping in a weird way. And I think we'll discover what that is later when you guys get to that point. And I'm hoping to get both of you guys at some point to be able to be talking to people in the world, most of you in the audience that are here regularly, I'm waiting for you guys to be comfortable enough to start doing what I'm doing in some way. You guys, some of you are, but you guys are going to have a bigger role that you're not quite aware of yet. And some of us are just waiting for you guys to become comfortable enough to do that. So I do apologize for that. And I will try to make sure that maybe I check my glasses to see who's talking a little more often. Right? Okay. So what is this? Sorry, I got a notification that popped up on
An
the screen.
attempt to survive, to reproduce, and to seek in its fashion that which is unconsciously felt as the
Okay, I got to run and go close the curtains in the living room and turn on the lamp. So I'm going to let Raw talk, but I can hear what's going on, and I'll come back and hop on here. But if I don't do that, my mom will get up and start fiddling with the windows, and she's having a hard time figuring how to do that nowadays, right? So because it's getting dark over here, it's 4:45. I'm going to go and do that. So I'll let you guys hear Raw. But again, Mel, I apologize, and Anna, I apologize for doing that. I've got to make sure that I put on my glasses, because normally what I do is I look down and I get used to a person's energy, and so when I see what you're saying, I tap into the energy, and I'm usually right about who it is that I'm, but not 100%. And for some reason, like I said, I'm aware of this, and I've talked about it off camera, that your guys' energy, if I'm not having my glasses on, I confuse you guys. So like looking at two twins, and I know you probably don't look alike at all because you're in different places in the world, and probably different, you're both female, but different races. I don't know how close your DNA is, but your spirit is, your souls are very close. You guys are related. You guys are actually related. Your souls are actually related to each other. You don't know that yet, but you might feel that again. That's why I said you guys talk, because you should to figure that out, because you guys are actually related to one another. Not just coming here together, but that's why, one reason. But you guys are actually, your souls have been sister, brother, cousin, mother, father, daughter, that kind of relationship. And you've chosen to be individuals on different places of the earth to do what you're doing now in this life. But you guys are actually related. You should look that up. Okay, let me play this, and I'm going to go and take care of the windows.
potential for growth, these two arenas or paths of development being two among many. 30.8 Questioner, I see. A news program I saw a couple of weeks ago raised the question of why the dinosaurs vanished, you might say, from our planet suddenly. I know this is unimportant, but I just wondered what the reason was. Ra, I am Ra. These entities could not feed their body complexes. 30.9 Questioner, now, in second density the concept of bisexual reproduction first originates. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. 30.10 Questioner, can you tell me the philosophy behind this mechanism of propagation of the bodily complex? Ra, I am Ra. The second density is one in which the groundwork is being laid for third density work. In this way it may be seen that the basic mechanisms of reproduction capitulate into a vast potential in third density for service to other self and to self, this being not only by the functions of energy transfer but also by the various services performed due to the close contact of those who are, shall we say, magnetically attracted, one to the other, these entities thus having the opportunities for many types of service which would be unavailable to the independent entity. 30.11 Questioner.
Sorry about that. I just got back and I was listening to what they were saying, and then I saw something, movement outside, and I thought, what is going on outside? It was somebody walking around and going up the stairs, but I was like, that's bizarre. So it kind of freaked me out. So Rick, according to the Miami Herald, Rick says, according to the Miami Herald, large sea creature found with 240 tentacles, just saw it pop up on something. Wow, I'll have to look into that. I wasn't aware of that. So that's something that literally just happened, and then they just posted it somewhere. I'm going to look into that and find out what that's about. That's kind of crazy. Yeah, I was unaware of that. I mean, anything's possible. There's so many different things in the ocean that we'd have never even fathomed discovering. Someday they'll figure out what Loch Ness Monster was. If it was in fact something, it was some prehistoric animal that has probably now died or moved on, because the Loch Ness is so deep, and they don't realize that where it goes, that, literally that could be a migratory pattern, and it comes up into the loch at a certain time of the year only. Because if you look into when Nessie has been seen, I've looked into it forever, like a hobby. And nobody's ever figured it out. But whenever they've gone to look, it's always been in the time that it doesn't show up. and they have never gone down like in a submarine to find out where that thing, whether it is in fact just a lake or if it goes underground into some other place. And they say they think that's what it actually does. So it's very possible that that goes into an underground ocean and that Loch Ness showed up there for a while and was living there and has moved on, or it's a migratory pattern that it comes a certain time of year. And none of them are aware enough to actually realize that, to figure it out. It's hard to say whether or not what it was, whether it was real or not. But they don't care anymore. It brings tourists, so they have to continue it now. So even if it was just a legend at one time, it's now going to be something that they depend on for money. Same thing with Egypt and the pyramids. That's why they don't want you to believe any other story than the one they're teaching you, because that's the one that's bringing in revenue. So Nessie is bringing people around the world to go there, to Loch Ness. So they want to keep that going as long as they can, just like Roswell, New Mexico. That little town of Roswell is only on the map today because people keep going there because that's where the aliens came from. That place would have dried up as soon as they moved the military base, which is still there. But I mean, when it became less useful, the city wouldn't have been there. I grew up in a city called Concord, and the only reason that it was there, that made it, because it was originally it was called Pacheco North, because the city of Pacheco flooded every year. So the people moved north. And they only moved north about 5 miles upland so they wouldn't flood. And then they called it Pacheco North. And then when government was doing the mapping from San Francisco, the city of San Francisco, the guy didn't like it called Pacheco North, so he renamed it Concord. And now it became officially known as Concord on the government maps. Eventually, the people who hated it eventually died off, and everybody started calling it what it was called on all the maps. And so now it was the city of Concord. That city only made it because the military created a military base just outside of town that was the largest naval weapons military ordnance platform in the Western Hemisphere of the world until they created the one down in San Diego, California, because they already had military bases down there. And eventually they realized that was a better spot. And so they created the military base and they moved everything there. When I was growing up, that military base is still there. They closed the military base officially, quote unquote, in 1997. But there was still, my buddy worked there after that. There was still ordnance there. And they had all this ordnance on the base and nuclear weapons and all this stuff. And I knew a guy that they called the professor who taught hand-to-hand combat out there. And he told me all the stuff that was going on in that base. So that base stayed there. And I knew the people who ran it. It was literally my buddy, his parents. One was the safety officer of the base, and the other one was one of the people who ran it. And they were lifers in the Navy. And they did that until they retired. So the base was still there, even though it was officially closed. It was still there, and it still had people on it doing stuff. And that's the only reason the city grew up, was because it was butted up against, literally, up against the gates, because they went from the military base to military housing, and the city what happened to be there, and it got incorporated when it became Concord. It got incorporated into all of the people that were based there for that military platform, which was all of the Navy for the Western Hemisphere of the United States government. All those people were going into town, and so it kept the town prosperous. And then people started moving there, and the town got bigger. The city of Concord right now is the largest city in that Contra Costa County, right? The coastline, Contra Costa, country coast, and that county is one of the largest counties in Northern California to this day. There's the amount of people. The state capital here in Sacramento has 380,000 people living in it. The city of Concord has more than 380,000 people living in it. Okay. So it's bigger than the capital of the state where I grew up. And I remember when I had a girlfriend one time, and I was driving her to my house, and my brother and I had a house so far out in town, on the edge of town to the east, that we said we were 30 minutes from nowhere, or 30 minutes from everywhere, because to get to our house, you had to get off of any major highway and drive 30 minutes across town from any direction to get to where we lived. And it was still the same city. And as we were driving, I said, here's where the city limits is, where it starts that I live in. And she was like, okay, what does that matter? And I'm like, because you're going to see, we're going to drive for more than a half an hour. And we're going to be doing about 45 miles an hour. And we're still going to be in the same city. And where we're going to is going to be the center of what is the city, but it's not the center of town. The center of the city is off to the west, but the entire city itself is ginormous. And there's people that live there and all the way out and all these different malls and all this stuff. And literally, she was like, wait a minute, we're still in the same city. And I'm like, yes, we're going to go half an hour or more, depending on traffic, to get to my house. And then we're only going to be in the center of what is the borderlines of this city. But we're going to be out of town compared to the city. So my point is that literally, because of the military, a lot of places are there. That has to do with everything, depending on, look at Australia. Your guys' cities were based on ports. Everything is. It's based on the ruling class and where they're bringing stuff in and out of the land mass. And then they set up shop there. San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego. I'm sure that most of your towns, your cities, your big cities in Australia, they're all port cities. And those, if you go back in time, you're going to find out that was the English ports when that was a penal colony, when they took all of your people from wherever they were prisoners and brought them there, unless you're Aborigine. And then you're like, those fucking people showed up. You know what I mean? So anyways, sorry. I know that was kind of ranting, but that's the migratory pattern of us humans. So let's get into that for a second. So that's the reason why most of these cities that we call fable cities don't exist anymore, because they were all on the coastline. Most of all life happens on the coastlines of lakes, streams, and oceans. So if you go backwards in time, people don't know that. They go just like, well, the world's been the way it is now forever. They think the geography of the planet is identical right now, 10,000 years ago. Okay. Just 2,000 years ago, the water level of this planet was more than 500 feet lower everywhere than it is now. 750 feet lower when you go back before the deluge, before the flood. Some say more than 1,000 feet. Lower than it is now. All of that water existed in the ionosphere and frozen on top of the earth, and on both sides, the top and bottom. Okay. All of that water was not just floating in the oceans the way it is today. So when they claim that we cause global warming, we humans, we didn't cause that. It happened when there was nothing. We had zero carbon footprint, and all of that happened, and the ocean rose. That had nothing to do with humans and our pollution and everything that we're doing. So everything that's happening right now is still happening because it is the progression of what has happened since the Ice Age ended. And everyone's like, no, we're creating all of this. We're making this happen. No, we're not. We're not having that much of an effect when you actually look at the progression of the earth prior to humans doing anything that had to do with all this smog and all this crap that we're doing to the earth. Is that contributing in a small way? Yeah, a little bit, because it can't not, because there's shit in the atmosphere that's radiating. Okay. But it's not making all of this happen as bad as they say. That's a lie. That's a religion they've started, and they want money. It's just another way of controlling everyone. All right, let's continue.
Was the basic reason, the original reason for this then to increase opportunity for experience of the one creator? Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is not merely correct but is the key to that which occurs in all densities. 30.12 Questioner. Does the process of bisexual reproduction or the philosophy of it play a part in the spiritual growth of second density entities? Ra, I am Ra. In isolated instances this is so due to efficient perceptions upon the part of entities or species. For the greater part, by far, this is not the case in second density, the spiritual potentials being those of third density. 30.13 Questioner. I was wondering if the male cat, Gandalf, has benefited by that mechanism in some way or by other mechanisms in increasing spiritual potential or understanding. Ra, I am Ra. We examine this information and find it harmless.
I love that they had a cat that was a boy cat that they called Gandalf. Gandalf the Grey. I bet he was a gray tabby, right? Gandalf. I love that. I remember hearing that the first time, and I just giggled about that. So I had to stop there and giggle about that. They had a cat. They had at least two cats because they said the male cat. So that means that there's a female cat, at least one more cat. And the male cat was called Gandalf. I love it. All right, let's continue.
The second density entity, sound vibration Gandalf, is a rare sample of its species due first to previous individualization, secondly due to a great amount of investment in this particular life experience. This is the greatest catalyst in this entity's progress. It is very unusual, as we have said. However, the experiences of bisexual reproduction which were of the nature of the entity Gandalf were to a small extent of spiritual benefit due to an unusual relationship with another entity, this also what you call a cat. This entity also being of an unusually third density orientation or investment from previous life experiences. Thus the formation of what could be seen to be recognizably love did exist in this relationship.
So you see that here in this example, there's a second dimensional cat that is, spiritually in the third dimension, self-aware, and living a life as a cat who's actually transitioning and still has not upgraded to a human being yet. Okay, that is what we assist with, because we were one of those things. You were something that was first dimensional, then second dimensional before you became a human on this earth. You could have been a cat or a dog or a bird, okay, or a bear or a tiger or something else, a giraffe. You were, or something aquatic. You were something that had motion and that was an animal, and then you became self-aware. And you had a life. Always, 100% of the time, you were alive as a second dimensional animal when you became self-aware. And if you had happened to come in and become self-aware right after birth, you lived that entire life of thinking, of being self-aware without all of the other ramifications of becoming a human in that body. And you see that in your pets, because we assist them. We do that with all animals. We assist them into becoming self-aware because we assign them names and talk to them as if they are. And as they're developing, they start to realize that they are, because you are talking to them and basically telling them and assisting them in the fact that they are something and that they count. And that causes them to become self-aware when they're ready. And you see that in your animals when you just know that they're in there. You know they're self-aware. You can tell that. And man, this one's so smart. They know what's going on. They're in there. So that's why, like horses, because horses are smart, like pigs, they're almost human, and gorillas. That's why some religions and people have said when warriors die, they become horses, right? The Salmatians from Sumeria believed that, and they showed that in that movie with Clive Owen where he played Arthur, and they showed that in there where they said that they were very aware, and because they were humans once. That's where you get the idea across the world that humans, some of them die and become animals. You don't go backwards. You don't ever actually do that. No soul from a human body ever goes backwards to become a lower being. You don't do that until you get higher, and then you don't come in and come back as, I want to come from the 12th dimension density and I want to be a bird. You don't do that. No one goes that far down because nobody wants to veil themselves past the possibility of waking up here. So you wait until that's assigned to you when you do it in the natural cycle. But then you're unaware of it, so it doesn't matter. You're becoming somebody completely different. I'm not going to get involved in that. That'll blow your mind, get you freaked out. Okay? So no human dies and becomes a dog or a cat. This cat's got to be my grandfather. Doesn't actually happen. It's okay that you think that, because that's expanding your consciousness to the possibility of life after death. And that's why nobody corrects people readily, because people who are evil want you to think that, because they go, yeah, 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 because you're thinking that something becomes simpler and is more asleep. So they don't want you to wake up to the realization that you never go backwards, and even when you do, you're only doing it from the perspective of a higher self coming down to sacrifice to do this, what you're doing here. And if you are one of the people that is a wanderer that's done this, you're doing this because it's part of that up there, and it's part of the whole ecosystem. So some people need to come down here to be in a position to do what I'm doing right now and assist. You do that to assist the animals to become human. And then you become higher than human, and you treat the people that are humans just like you would a pet that's an animal, and you're coming back to help them. Okay. And so you're always in a position, someone is always above you and somebody is always below you. And as you start to ascend here, you have the realization of that it behooves me. It is something that I am responsible for to help these people, because that's part of the ecosystem. So even if you're not aware of it on a super conscious level, you are, through osmosis or through instinct, you know that I should help people because I'm in service to others. So you will then be nice to animals and treat them that way and talk to them like they're real, and you don't know that you're assisting them. This is where everything is in service to others, even people that are in service to self. Okay. So even they talk to the dog like it is somebody and get mad at it and kick it and beat it and treat it like shit. Why? What is the purpose of that? Same purpose that you're doing it with love. It still teaches. So that's why they hate to know that. They don't want to know that, and they have to defy that they are serving the exact same purpose that people who are in service to others are serving at this point in this place. They can't have that. No, we're serving, because they're serving themselves and they believe it. So therefore, they don't believe they're in any way in service to others. So they can't, because then that changes their dynamic. Do you see? So they have to defy it. They have to go past denying it and defy it. They have to try and prove that it has nothing to do with that. Pshaw. No, right? They can't, because the second they admit that to themselves, they lower their evilness, because it gives rise to the all. They can't fathom that. They have to stay away from it. In fear, hatred, they have to stay away from it, because it will change them and diminish them.
30.14 questioner. Thank you. Can you give me a brief history of the metaphysical principles of the development of each of our planets around the sun and their function with respect to evolution of beings? Ra. I am Ra. We shall give you a metaphysical description only of those planets upon which individual mind/body/spirit complexes have been, are, or shall be experienced. You may understand the other spheres to be a part of the Logos. We take the one known as Venus. This planetary sphere was one of rapid evolution. It is our native Earth, and the rapidity of the...
Anna, the reason that you feel that way, Anna says, and I made sure to, did you see me lean back and make sure I knew who I was talking to? Anna says, hey, animals are the most important species on this planet, and I would rather be surrounded by them than humans. Well, why is that? Because animals aren't evil yet. There is no choice to be evil yet. Animals just love unconditionally. So everyone wants to be around animals because they haven't chosen. It's only when they become self-aware that they start to choose to do things good and evil, because then they're starting to make that choice. So humans have made the choice and are somewhere on that spectrum. So anyone who is aware of energy is going to be associated with nature and animals first, because there is none of that happening. You don't have to worry about an animal pretending it loves you and then biting you, right? The only time that happens is when you realize they're self-aware, and then they do that. Oh, unless it's a cat, and then when they get excited, they're going to bite you anyway, because that's what they do. And they nibble on you. Dogs do the same thing. But that's because they're trying to say, I love you, right? And so that's when they do that. It's the ones that have been treated meanly who have chosen to be mean in defense and fear, because they're becoming self-aware. And that's the one that you walk up to and you go to pet the dog and it bites you, and you can tell that it did it because it's an asshole. Well, that's a dog that's now self-aware and is chosen like a human. So most people, when you become aware of energy, you don't want to be around the evil people because they're annoying, right? So there's nothing wrong with that. But the reason that you're choosing that is because because you're subjected to this shit from these evil people all the time that are around, right? So I get what you're saying. I'm the same way because you know that no matter what your day is like, if you have a dog or cat, whether you're a dog person or a cat person or both, let's just go with that, any animal that you love, you're going to go to them for comfort because you want to get away from the dynamic of the possibility that that animal is going to be evil and try to fuck you over. So you're going to go to something that is not that way. And you're going to go, oh God, I missed you. I was gone all day and I just I can love someone who's going to love me back unconditionally. That's why they're there for us and we're there for them for the same reason. Right. So there's nothing wrong with that. I love that you said that because it's the truth. We're all like that. We just don't want to admit it unless you hate animals. And if you hate animals, you also hate children and people because you're in service to self and you hate everything that's not you and that takes any kind of attention away from you. So anyone who's not an animal lover, just know when people go, I hate animals. I hate kids. I don't like kids. Anyone who says that to you is telling you who they are. You need to pay attention and listen to them. I don't like animals. Can't stand them. Don't want them around me. I hate kids. I don't like kids. I don't want to have kids. Why? They're self-centered, egotistical, sexist, racist, and they only love themselves. Guaranteed. They're telling you who they are. That's why the first thing you should do. People are like, well, how do I know if I'm trying to date or find somebody? Well, just ask simple questions. How do you feel about kids? Don't like them. Don't want them around. Don't care about kids. Why? Do you have kids? That tells you the mindset of that person. How do you feel about cats and dogs? I have animals. Do you like them? Nope. Can't stand them. Why? Well, I'm allergic. All right, that's different. You're allergic, so you don't want them around. But if you're not, right? People who are in service to self only have animals around that can serve them. So you'll see that the evil guy's got a dog that he trains to be evil. He's got a dog that's mean because he wants a dog because the dog can protect him and be a threat to other people. He's in service to self, right? Rarely do you see somebody with a cat who's in service to self, but those ones also make their cats mean. So they tell you who they are if you pay attention. You know somebody, don't touch that cat. He hates everybody. Well, why does that cat hate everybody? Because he tortures that cat. Okay, that cat didn't choose that. The cat became that. Same thing with the dog. You don't get around that dog, the dog will bite you. Why? Because he trained that dog to bite you. He's in service to self, and he's making the dogs and the cats or anybody in his family just like him, evil and in service to self. So you have to realize this. This is part of returning to the old ways, is the realization of that. They've taken all that away from you and don't want you to see it. Do you see? And then they get you with the religions. You need to turn the other cheek and you need to try. Every religion tells you you should never get a divorce and you should come to us and go to counseling and we'll take care of all of that. Just do your job, slave. If you're a female, you're supposed to have his fucking kids. Shut up. Feed him his food. Take his sperm and have his kids. And if you're a guy, they're like, just shut up and do your job. Go out and get money. Screw her. And so she can have your kids. Procreate, teach them our way, and you'll go to heaven. You'll get all of the rewards later after you die. Do you see my point? So the truth is what they're teaching you in the religions is shut up, sit down, do what you're told, and just put up with it. Because they don't want you knowing that. They don't want you learning that. They don't want you seeing it. They don't want you knowing it, seeing it, living it, and then experiencing it and having the realization of this motherfucker needs to go. They can't have you doing that. Right? They can't. They don't want you to. So the religions are corrupted. Your schools are corrupted. They're all corrupted to tell you to shut up, get over yourself, and deal with the people and go to counseling and figure your shit out. And then if you go there and the person is truly in service to self, they're going to be like, I don't want to have any part of this shit. And you're going to be fighting constantly to get them to do that. Nothing will ever change because that person is not going to stop being in service to self. What happens is you change. If you're not in service to self, you change, and eventually you start looking at those people and go, that motherfucker needs to go. Whether it's a man or a woman, or your brother or your sister, or your boss or your job, you will change all of those things. And you will walk away from all of that and not want to be associated with it. So, and it usually starts with, I hate people, and I want to be around animals only. Just that realization in and of itself it tells us that somebody is starting to become aware of everything that's actually going on, and they're already choosing to get rid of that negative energy. So there's nothing wrong with that. You're doing just fine. Right? And so Cassie's here. Welcome. Right? I saw you pop in, and I didn't see what she said here. I put my glasses on so I know what the hell who I'm talking to and what they're saying. I'm not going to, I probably shouldn't tell everybody what you said, but right. Okay. So she was just saying what she was doing before she got here. Sorry, I just showed up, just got here. Okay. So let's continue with Rob, but that's part of the realization of the energy, right? And I don't want to be around that negative shit anymore. I don't want drama, right? It starts with I don't want drama, and then it's I don't want to be around people, and then it moves into, well, why is that? And then you start to have that realization, and that you're ascending at that point. And then you start cutting all those people out. You start changing the way what you read, what you watch, what you listen to, what you eat, and who you're around. And then you start cutting out anybody that is in service to self. And you have to. You have to. No matter how hard it is, you have to literally do that at some point and go, yeah, I made a mistake. When I was asleep, this guy was great, or this woman was great. Now I realize that this one is toxic. And because they're in service to self, they need to go. I need to go. So then you have to find the courage to do it if you're the one that has to leave and that they're not going to leave. And then you have to have the courage to not let them keep their claws in you, because they'll do everything they can to keep control over you. Even if you boot them out and you do that stuff, they'll fight you for a long time until you make a break completely. And that's why you hear people like leaving and going to another town and things like that. But then you're going to run into the same people, because 14% of the population is evil. And you're going to run into them wherever you are. All right, let's continue.
Progress of the mind/body/spirit complexes upon its surface was due to harmonious interaction. Upon the entity known to you as Mars, as you have already discussed, this entity was stopped in mid-third density, thus being unable to continue in progression due to the lack of hospitable conditions upon the surface. This planet shall be undergoing healing for some of your space/time millennia. The planet which you dwell upon has a metaphysical history well known to you, and you may ask about it if you wish. However, we have spoken to a great degree upon this subject. The planet known as Saturn has a great affinity for the infinite intelligence, and thus it has been dwelled upon in its magnetic fields of time/space by those who wish to protect your system.
Okay. So literally, because Venus is there's beings there in the 8th, but also in the 7th and the 6th and the 5th. Okay. And some in the 4th, because the council, I believe, is docked in the 6th and the 4th. Yeah. So literally, we can't see them. We go to Venus and there's nothing there, right? We see it as a gas giant, right? But that's only in this 3rd dimension. When you get to the 4th dimension, it's a complete world, just like here on Earth, right? In the 4th dimension, there's an entire ecosystem of humans living here. They're not quite human like we are, but they still call this place Terra, still call it Earth. But the people that are there, this is why the council is there, right? The Council of Nine, the Council of Planets, the Galactic Council, whatever you call it, whatever you know it as. That's why they're there, because that is the hub of the population of souls in this solar system. Okay. We think Earth is, because we're here and we're arrogant and think that we're the center of the universe, right? But it's not. That is for this solar system, for the overall evolution of 0 or 1, 0 through 9, and back to 0 in this solar system. It's the planet Venus, at least that we know of, because when you get to the 8th and above, they don't communicate with us down here, and we don't get to communicate with them until we're consciously in a place where we can expand to that. So it's hard for me to look there, because I can look there and I can see what's there, but I can't tell you. So I know, and because I'm unveiled, I can look there, but I can't explain to you, because it's against the laws of the universe for me to explain to anyone here what I see there. So I can see it and I can go, oh man, that's fucking cool. That's all I can do. I can go way on the fringes and I can't prove in any way that it exists to you, and I can't tell you in any way what it looks like or what it smells like or feels like or any of that. Can't, any of it. It's forbidden, right? But it's there and it exists. Okay. So, and that's where people will go, then it's not real and you're bullshit and you're making it all up. Your choice, believe what you want. Because in the long-term scheme of the actual reality of the universe, doesn't matter. What you think, what I think, what all of us think is actually inconsequential. It doesn't matter at all. What matters is the experiences that we're having. That's it. The experiences are what matter. Individual beliefs only come into play so that we have individual movies being filmed. It's the closest as I can tell you. Yeah. So that's it. Experience is what is and what matters to the creator and to all of existence. Being. Individual idea of that is only a perception, and that is individual, so that we have an individual experience, so that we have a recording coming from my point of view, your point of view, and a top-down topical point of view from the point of view of the universe. Okay? And that is all done so that it's perspective. That's the important thing. The important thing is that's why we're imagining all of this. That's what's going on. So I can't, that's as best as I can describe that to you here to where you could understand what all of this means and what it is. That's all we're supposed to know here. You're actually supposed to move into that realization here, so you can move past that into the realization of infinite and what that means, infinity, and what that means in love and wisdom and hate and anger and sorrow and all of that. And that's the next step. That's no one, people are, we're moving into 4D and 5D. You have no idea. You have no idea. Everything you think is a higher realm is in this dimension. All of it. Everything that you fathom, you're only becoming slightly aware, because all of the things we learn here is like kindergarten, whatever you call that, preschool, and then through first grade through 12th grade, and then college. College is the fourth dimension and above. And that is just the next level of school that goes from 1 to 12. And then there's another college that starts in the 8th dimension that is so far above this one that you can't even imagine what it is you learn there. But it has everything to do with everything that you're learning here, which is all the small individual things that are all the topics. And then those become bigger and more complicated and more individualized as you move up. Fourth dimension is wisdom. Then you have love. Then you have, and this is only on the in service to all side. And so you have all the experiences of the things that you have here in the physical, in the spiritual, all the chakras become an individual number. Do you see? And then it repeats at 8. And then there's another set. And those are all individualized that go higher chakras. And that's as best as I can describe that, because they're telling me to stop now. Okay. I was about to go into a place where they're like, nope, because I just went to the 8th and I was going to start describing. And I literally got, no, stop that there, right there, as far as you go. And so there was a line drawn that I couldn't pass. And even that, I'm sure, is confusing, because I'm sure that even that, in a way that I'm trying to explain it to you now, probably doesn't make much sense, because it's not supposed to yet. And if it does make sense to you, it's because you're in a place that you can know what I just said and to actually feel it. Do you understand that? But if you don't, and I just confused you, that's okay. We're way down here in the 3rd dimension. We're supposed to be confused about that stuff up there because we're nowhere near that. So everything that you think when everyone goes, we're going into 4D and 5D, we're going to be in 12D next year. I've seen someone say that on TikTok. We're going to be in 12D. We're skipping right into 12D soon. So I remember that 5 years ago, it was we were skipping into 4D. And then 3 years ago, it was we're skipping into 5D. And now we're skipping all the way to 12D. And I'm just like, no, that's just the 12th level of the third dimensional level of your onion of where you are here. Just moving out of the lower three chakras to the heart. And what you think is fourth dimension, fifth dimension, and sixth dimension is actually your fourth, fifth, and sixth chakra. Or your fifth, sixth, and seventh chakra. That's all. And that's here in the third dimension. It has nothing to do with the dimension. It has to do with your density. It has to do with your spiritualism. And it's supposed to. You're supposed to realize that. We're not physically going to shift into the fourth dimension. It's not going to happen. We're shifting into the fourth density. We're shifting from the physical body consciousness to the spiritual body consciousness. Okay? That's what's happening. It has nothing to do with physicality. And you're supposed to come to that realization. Physicality ceases here. This is the densest you will be physical in your existence. From here, your physical flesh body becomes less and less dense as your spiritual body becomes more and more dense. Okay? That's why we talk about spiritual gravity. The consciousness of this earth was nowhere near ready to even hear those words. And now it's all over the internet. And people are saying, fight spiritual gravity. They're already starting with the negative, trying to tell you how to overcome spiritual gravity. Okay? You hear anybody talk about that, they don't know what they're talking about, and they're being negative by not knowing about it. That's what happens with all things anyway. So it's normal. Don't get mad at them and tell them they're wrong. That's like telling somebody they're asleep and you're awake. They're going to look at you and think you're crazy, and that you're going to say, no, you're evil. No, you are. I know I am not, but I know you are, but what am I? That's what's going to happen. They're going to be a version of that, right? So I don't correct anybody when they say that. All right, let me teach you how to overcome spiritual gravity. Spiritual gravity is the next step. The realization that there is a gravity and that the force of the earth and the gravitational pull of the earth is directly related to the spiritualism is your next step in evolution. And why is that? That's the next step of evolution and what you become, leaving the physical body. Then literally in the fourth dimension, the physical body, it doesn't look like it does here. It's not as dense. It starts to disappear because it's no longer needed as you transition into a spiritual being. There is no need for the physical anymore. It's just a tool right now, but you're unaware of that. So when you go into the fifth dimension, you don't have legs. You're a torso. Okay? And your torso is see-through by the fifth dimension. So you can see my organs and my heart and the things that are going on, and they're kind of transparent too. And you're starting to see the light that is emanating from the heart chakra, glowing. By the time you're in the fifth and halfway through that, going into the sixth, the light starts shining from here and the body starts going away more. And then the head starts to go away. And by the time you're in the sixth, halfway through the sixth, you are only light. Physical body is now gone. There is no dimension. There is only density from that point on in your existence. I couldn't even tell you that 40 years ago. I can tell you that now, and 90% of you are going to go, okay, from hearing it. But that number is lowering and lowering and lowering quickly. The amount of people that are going to look at me and go, okay, when I say what I just said. The number of people that are going to go, what? Yeah, fucking knew it. That number is going to go up as time goes right now. And that's just the normal evolution of what's going on here. And that's why the people that are aware of it are like, man, this is so freaking beautiful. And I can't wait for it because it's so close, dude. You guys have no idea how insanely perfect this is and how beautiful it is. Let's continue.
The planetary entity known to you as Uranus is slowly moving through the first density and has the potential of moving through all densities. 30.15 Questioner. Thank you. I was wondering if any of the other planets had a metaphysical evolution. You stated yesterday that much of this major galactic system dwells spiritually as a part of the Logos. By that, do you mean that nearer the center of this major galactic system that the stars there do not have planetary systems? Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is incorrect. The Logos has distributed itself throughout your galactic system. However, the time/space continua of some of your more central sun systems is much further advanced. 30.16 Questioner.
See, so depending on where you go, you can go into a star system where it doesn't have third and fourth and fifth dimensional or third dimensional at all life. And if you went there in the third dimension, you would see no life. That is the places that we're looking at in the stars now. And they're going, no life there, no life there, no life there. That doesn't mean there's no life there. And I said that before on a show. What NASA is looking for is not life. They're looking for life as we know it. So they're looking for a place that can sustain. They're looking for the Goldilocks zone, a place that can sustain human existence or that has the ability to be transformed into. So if you go to a place that has oxygen we can breathe, we're going to fucking go there and set up camp. If you go to a place that can possibly, like Mars, if we went there and set up a biodome, we could grow food in the atmosphere. But we would have to import oxygen. But the ground would sustain life. So in truth, there's life on Mars, but they won't say there's life on Mars because they only say life is water, because water has oxygen, water has all of the building blocks that humans need to survive. So in truth, when you look at the stars, they say, well, there's no life on that planet. There's no life on the moon. That means I can't go there and step outside of my spaceship and live. That's what that means. That doesn't mean that it's not alive and there's not actual life there. But they don't count anything as alive. This is the arrogance of their ego. Nothing is life unless I can go there and walk around or terraform it, which means, here's that word terraform. That means to make like Earth there. That's what that word means. But people don't realize that because they've tricked you into believing this planet's called Earth and that you're called an Earthling. Okay? Terra firma means the ground, means Earth. So Earth, when you say that, it just means planet. It means dirt. And that's why I talk about that word Grig in The Last Starfighter, when the kid, I don't remember his name now, when he asked the kid, where are you from? And he said, Earth. He said, Earth what? Because the translator translated into his language as planet. Planet what? But if you didn't read the book, you didn't know that. They just had it in the movie and people were like, Earth what? Ha, that's kind of funny. And then some people would get it and go, oh, Earth must mean in his language planet. Earth does mean planet. Because what we call this place is Earth. We call it terra. Terra firma means the ground. So the truth is, we think the name of this planet is Earth when it's actually terra, but that word means Earth. But it actually is a concept. It means dirt. It means the firm stuff that we dig in. That's all it means. Right. So the truth is, this planet is not actually named Earth. That's a translation. It's a rough translation. The name of this planet is actually Terra, and that's only in the third dimension. Actually, in the fourth, because they call it the same thing. So the fourth, they also call it Terra. So terra firma is the name of this planet in two dimensions. Well, in the first and the second. So in first, second, third, and fourth dimension, this Earth is actually called that. Okay. But that's not what all other planets are called, because that's not what life is. So my point is that some places you would go and you would say, well, there's no life, there's void of life, and it can't sustain human lives. So you would go to a different place that does have first and second dimensional life, because then we could move there. Or the potential for us to terra firma, to create our life existence there, to make it like us. Terra firma, right? So yeah, Rick's giving the translation, right? Yeah, right. There you go. There's the breakdowns. That's the Greek, right? Rick said land equals terra, right? Firmament equals solid. Firmament equals solid. Firma, right? That comes from the Greek. Very good. Very astute, Rick. Did you look that up or did you know that? I bet you knew that. So that's kind of cool. No, that's so absolutely right. So the truth is, to terraform something means to transform it into this place, to make it solidified for human existence, right? Terra firma, land, and solid land, terra firma, solid land. So solid earth, so solid dirt, solid land, so land mass, terra firma. So terra is the planet, and terra firma means the land, not the ocean or the sky. But the ocean is still on the earth. It's 75% of the ocean is water. 75% of our planet is water, not terra firma, but terra. Okay, let's continue.
Well then, could you generally say that as you get closer to the center of this major galactic system that there is a greater spiritual density, I'll use the term, or that this general spiritual quality is advanced at that area? Ra, I am Ra. This will be the last full question of this session as this instrument is somewhat uncomfortable. We do not wish to deplete the instrument. The spiritual density or mass of those more towards the center of your galaxy is known. However, this is due simply to the varying timelessness states during which the planetary spheres may coalesce, this process of space/time beginnings occurring earlier, shall we say, as you approach the center of the galactic spiral. We welcome any short tape ends. 30.17 Questioner.
See, so that also, the closer you get to the center of the spiral, okay, then there's a time distortion, but only in the third dimension. And they were not letting me go further to explain this. And in this dimension, the closer you get to the center of the universe, you're going backwards in time. They'll let me go down this road. You'll go backwards in time to the creation because it's closer to the creation because that's where everything was created from. So the further out you go, the further away from the creation you are. They're letting me go down this road. And that is why, because we're so far out on the fringe, that is why we are in the position that we're in our development in the third dimension. Okay? So the sphere of the universe is a torus, and the center is the 0 point where the Milky Way galaxy started from, or the universe started from. Okay? So I have shown you these visuals before. So the time distortion, the further away you go, it's because we're older. Do you see? And everything that's in the center is newer. So we would be going backwards in time. So when we're looking there with the telescopes, we're saying, well, it takes light so long to get to us that's 10,000 years ago that we're seeing. Truth is, if you go there, you're going to find that the life that's there is not going to be as advanced as the life that's here, because the life that's there is newer life. So they're not realizing that yet because they haven't gone there. Because what they're doing is they're perceiving what it looked like then, now, because the light has gone so far. But they don't realize that when you go backwards, when you go to the center in the third dimension, if you have a ship, if we ever create a ship so we can move there, you're going to find that it goes backwards in time because it's starting there. That's the starting point. So everything that's there is starting in this dimension, in the first and the second and the third. And then you're going to see that there's the same progression, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. Okay. But it's going to be newer than all the ones on the outer edges, because those were created first. Okay. So we're in the cycle that we're in because we're in the position that we're in on this earth, and the cycle of the earth from its beginnings to where it is now in the universe itself, in the region of the space that we're in the region of the universe that we're in the region of the galaxy that we're in. All of that has to do with where we are in our development. And then individually, we're in a place that we've all individually spun for ourselves on this planet and in the solar system, that is bound by the rules of engagement of the logos in general that goes to the larger logos, And I can't get any more descriptive than that, which sucks because I thought I was going to be able to explain that better. Because the people here are not ready to get that. Some of you are a little bit, so you're going to get a little bit of what I said, and some of them I'm going to confuse again. I apologize for that. Sometimes it gets hard to get really high level to explain that. So, in short, as our technology changes on this earth and we're able to look further back to the center of the universe, we're going to realize that we're looking backwards in time even more than we are now, and that the theories will start to come up that the things that are in fact there, even though we're seeing things that are backwards in time because we're seeing them from a time, because it took time for the image to get to us that might be prehistoric, the expansion of consciousness is going to be the realization. I don't know if we'll be alive in this lifetime to see it, but you might. I don't know if some people are already starting to say it like I am. The realization and theories are going to start popping up that things are actually newer there, that we're actually witnessing them a long time ago, but that if we actually physically went there, we would realize that we would be going backwards in time as we know it when we went there. That concept hasn't gotten into the scientific community right now. They're believing that all of those people if we went there right now and we're instantly there, they would be 10,000 years more advanced than what we're seeing because we would see them as they truly are now. And that only happens the higher level that you go. And they're not aware of that yet because that's where it all started. So the truth is, all of what is there at the center of the galaxy isn't as old, hasn't been around as long as we have. So as you go there, you're going to go backwards in time because that's the way time is supposed to happen if you physically go there. But no one's aware of that concept here. They're just seeing it from this distance and assuming that those people are 10 billion years old because it must have taken 10,000 years for the image to get to us because we're basing it on our perspective of time. That's confusing. I even know it's confusing, and I was a physicist. So I'm sure that I didn't help at all by that description. If you're capable to understand what I just said, you're going, okay, bro, I get it. That's pretty badass. Otherwise, you're just going to be going, maybe, I don't know what you just said, right? Because a scientist right now would be like, that you just don't know. That just doesn't make any sense at all to me. That's what a nuclear physicist would just have said to me. Because unless they're enlightened, that would be very confusing even to them. No, it doesn't work that way because it can't. Because from our perspective, if I go there, I'm going to see them as they are now, and it's going to be 10,000 years from what I just saw. So they're going to be 10,000 years more advanced. But then when they actually go there, they're going to find out that even the distance of time that you think, that's the illusion. You're actually seeing them for what it is now. But you think because light's taken this long that you're seeing them in the past. You're not. You're seeing them in your past. That's the truth of that paradox. I figured out how to get there without them stopping me. So if you understand a time paradox, what we're seeing that we perceive as taking 10,000 years for the light to reach us is in fact what's going on there physically now. But that concept only is perceivable when you realize that if I go there physically, that I will have to go back in time to go there from my perspective of here. Because this planet was created a couple of trillion years ago, or the space that this planet is in. The planet itself is only a couple of 12 billion years old. But it's in a region of space where everything that is created, this place was created more than 100 trillion years ago. But if I go to the center of the universe, that's the center of creation, everything there is going to be newer and newer and newer and newer as I get closer and closer to the 0 point. So I'm not perceiving it as seeing the light from 10,000 years ago because I'm perceiving time from my perspective. When you start perceiving outside of time, you realize that what you're seeing is now there. It's now. That's why the joke works from Spaceballs. Well, this is now, sir. It's now. How could this be now? We haven't even been done finishing filming the movie. I know, sir, but it's a new technology and this is now. And he's looking at the camera and looking at the screen and looking at the camera and looking at the screen. And he's like, he doesn't get it. That's exactly the quantum weirdness that I just pushed onto you about reality. And so if you see that and you realize what the paradox that he was in right there, how could we be watching ourselves live when this is a movie and we haven't finished filming the movie, but we're seeing it as a movie because we were able to fast forward, right? But then when they got to now, they couldn't go backwards because now they're now. And that concept was people, even in comedy, getting onto the realization that when you leave time, everything is just now. And once you leave time, you can't go back to past, present, and future because you would have to then become that again. And then you have to be veiled and start over. That's the concept of what I'm trying to get across to you about looking out into space, into the center of the universe. You're actually seeing it as now, but you don't know that because your perspective is it's taken all this time for the light to get here. And time is only a perception. Time is a perspective. Those are literally the last 3 things I posted, or 4 things that I posted is about that on my reels and shorts all over my pages and all over the internet. Is about what I'm just talking about. Why? Because I knew we were going to be talking about this. All right, let's continue and finish this because we can this week. We can finish it. We only got a few minutes left. What, a minute and a half or something like that?
The instrument would like to know if you could tell her whether or not this item, which is called Sam Miller's polarizer, would help her physical well-being. Can you do that? Ra. I am Ra. As we scan the instrument, we find anomalies of the magnetic field which are distorted towards our abilities to find narrowband channel into this instrument's mind/body/spirit complex.
I loved Spaceballs, just so you know. Right? Penny said, Spaceballs is a good movie, sort of. No, it's a great movie. Love it. A genius. Right? Genius. So, yeah, no, love that stuff. Okay, let's continue here.
The polarizer of which you speak, as it is, would not be helpful. A careful reading of this instrument's aura by those gifted in this area, and subsequent alterations of the magnetizing forces of this polarizer, would assist the entity, Sam, in creating such a polarizer that would be of some aid to the instrument. However, we would suggest that no electrical or magnetic equipment not necessary for the recording of our words be brought into these sessions, for we wish no distortions that are not necessary. 30.18 Questioner, thank you. Is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or improve the contact? Ra, this instrument is well balanced and the contact is as it should be. This instrument has certain difficulties of a distortion you would call the muscular spasm, thus making the motionless position uncomfortable. Thus we leave the instrument. I am Ra. You are doing well, my friends. I leave you in the love and the light of the one infinite creator. Go forth, then, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one creator. Adonai.
Okay, so yeah, Mel Brooks, Penny. Mel Brooks was is a genius. I think he's still alive. Genius, comedy genius, very awake, and concepts. Even though poking fun at like everything in movies. I mean, the whole Spaceballs was a poke at Star Wars comedy, but they, odes to. Like when yogurt dies, that's from Wizard of Oz. He even does the "What a world, what a world, what a world." That when they splashed water on the witch and she died, yogurt died the same way because he was green, so he was like the witch. So that was his homage to the Wizard of Oz, and also showing that what he was making was kind of a version of the Wizard of Oz. In a sense, because he literally blended Star Wars and the Wizard of Oz. You had the dog. He was a Mog, right? Half man, half dog. And that was Toto, only he was called Bartholomew. And then you had, the Luke Skywalker character. I forgot what his character name was. And then they flew in a Winnebago, which was hilarious, right? The flying Winnebago was their spaceship. So it was supposed to be the Millennium Falcon, right? Should look up what that word means, right? And literally that entire scenario was put together that way. And the scenario of the time distortion and dilation was actually very brilliant, even though it was comedy. It has to do with the progression, whether he was onto it consciously or his joke was not. It was still giving light to reason of the idea of time outside of time, or being outside of time, and being able to perceive that. Even though he did it as a joke, I don't know what his motivation was, because I have never talked to the man for that scene. And it might have been just a third dimensional that's funny because of movies. I mean, they even joked about making more movies because it was the quest for more money, and so he was taking shots at Hollywood and that kind of stuff. But so that was all funny. But there's also, depending on the level of your existence, everything that happens in the physical is a representation of everything that happens in the spiritual. So even though people are unaware of what they do and say in the physical, having ramifications in the fourth and fifth and sixth dimension, it does. And your perception of where you are, you come to the realization of and unlock knowledge in mundane things that exists there. It's not, in the beginning, you think you're making it up, and people will try and say that you are. You're trying to see things that are not there. Those people don't see those things. And some of that in the beginning is that you try to apply things and force things to be something other than what they are. And eventually, when you stop using your ego to do so, and that's why we teach people that the best thing you can do is surrender, question everything. And then when you're questioning everything in the beginning, you're trying to control it because your ego. Then when you start getting control of the ego itself, then your questions start becoming more spiritual. And as you start becoming a spiritual being, you're still trying to hold on to this place because your ego's afraid now, because it's going to lose its grip on you. And that's what happens when this place loses its grip on you. The ego loses its grip on you. And that's supposed to happen. And then you come to the realization that there is something else there, but you're still in this place, so you still have that wanting to control the outcome. And eventually you come to the realization of that you're actually hurting yourself by doing that and slowing down your own progress. It's like trying to sail against the wind. You have to tack back and forth to make any progress. And eventually, if you're a good sailor, you can actually learn to adjust the sails to where you don't have to tack so much, and you take a different angle and you move faster against the wind. And you don't have to take these broad angles back and forth to go forward. You literally find where the wind is, and you cock your boat over, and you set the sails up so they feed each other, and it keeps you in almost a straight line, and you go a lot faster against the wind. And then eventually you start to realize that going with the flow is, in the universal mindset, is not going against the grain. Going against the grain here is the beginning, learning to tack to go forward against the grain, and then learning how to hone that. And I'm using all nautical terms here. Learning how to hone that to be able to sail directly into the wind and still go fast, but not as fast as going, with the wind, because you can never go as fast as going with the wind against the wind. But you go doubles your speed that you could possibly from tacking back and forth. And the people who race do that, and you'll see them turn that boat like way on its side, and then you'll see it kind of come up. It doesn't stay way over because that's tacking really hard, and you're trying to catch the wind on one sail. And then when you see them open other sails, the mizzen and the halyard and that sort of stuff, you'll see them sitting at slightly different angles. And what's happening is they're catching the wind and shooting it to the other sail, and then shooting it to the other sail and catching it more. And that pulls the ship from being way tacked over on its side to a halfway, and they call that almost an even keel. There's a term that is escaping me right now. And then that's like what do they call that when they go to dead run? I'm trying to remember. It's been 7 years since I've been on sailing, so I'm losing the memory of the words. But when there's a storm and the wind is really bad, they literally will put up the sails and sail into the wind, and then they'll heave to. That's the terminology I was looking for. When you're going against the wind and you hit that perfect current, when you have the sails set up perfectly, it's called heaving to. And then the people will go down into the boat and hide from the storm, and they'll heave to, and the boat will sail itself directly into the storm or directly into the wind, and go super fast into the wind. And you can't be up topside because there's storming with the rain, and the wind is so hard that it whips everybody, and you'll go overboard if you're not careful and you're not strapped down. So everybody, when you heave to, you get into that position of going against the wind, and then everybody hunkers down, and you batten down all the hatches, and you go inside and you look through whatever portal you can see to make sure you're not going to crash into anybody. Or these days you use your Garmin and you watch the radar and make sure you're not going to go into crash into anything. That's called heaving to, and that was scary to and is scary to people when you do it. That you do that as a spirit, you eventually heave to. And then the other way around is when you open up all sails and you're going with the wind, and you put up all the big, huge sails, and it look like big, giant parachutes. And again, you have to heave to because you can't see past the sails. So now you have to go below the sails and look through something to see where you're going. So again, you have to heave to, and then you'll be going downwind and going super fast. Though I know those are nautical terms, and if you're not a sailor, you may not understand those words. But so as a spirit, wow, I hit that like I was missing a tooth there. That was almost a whistle, right? In your spirit, and when you get to that point, you start to realize that it's easier to go with the flow of the universe because you'll move faster and you'll ascend faster. So when you get to a certain point, we tell you this is where you have to give over yourself to the universe. You have to surrender. And people are like, well, surrender? What does that mean? It means everything. It means everything you think it means. It means you surrender everything and believe that the universe will take care of you. And that is the hardest thing that you have to do. It is harder than anything that you have to do in this place. Shadow work and that realization you think is hard, the dark night of the soul, that is hard. That will be the first hardest thing you'll have to do. The next hardest thing you have to do is heave to. Surrender to the universe and allow it to run its course and hop onto it and stop trying to hold on. Okay, and they show you that like in Pirates of the Caribbean when they're going to go over the edge of the world. They had to heave to and let it go. They did the same thing in the Viking movie. Well, see, I hadn't thought about it for a minute, so I can't think of what it was. The Eric the Viking. They did the same thing where they got to the edge of the world. And they had to sail off the edge of the world, and they had to convince Eric to heave to let go and trust the universe. And they did that in Pirates of the Caribbean when they went to Davy Jones' locker to get Captain Jack back. They had to let go and know that we're going to die. We have to die to go to the locker to find Jack and then figure out how we're going to get back. The same thing happened in Eric the Viking, where they got to the edge of the world and Eric was threw a lanyard or rope out to a rock and was holding and tied it off to hold the ship from going over the edge. And he had to literally, I think the woman was I talked to him and she said, you don't have to believe in what I'm saying, but trust me, believe me. And then he let go and they sailed over the edge. And that was how they could get to Valhalla. They had to die to go to Valhalla. And they were trying to go to Valhalla to wake up the gods to save the world, to drive Fenrir the wolf from the sky. So again, that's the illumination. That's another, that's the next representation of your illumination. Is that those what you hear from the Viking and the same pantheon of the trust in the Lord, and they tell you this in Christian religion and all the other religions. You have to trust Jesus. I was just watching season 3, episode 3 of The Chosen last night, as a matter of fact, and they were talking about that slightly in there, and the one before that where you have to trust. The one before that when he was sending everybody out on their mission he said, you can't take any food, any provisions, and no extra clothing. And I want you guys to all go out in different directions, and I'm pairing you up, and you guys have to go out and spread the word and trust in the God, trust in God, that God will provide for you. And he was teaching them that, because he's getting them ready for in where we're at in the Beatitude. He's getting them ready because he's going to be gone. And he has to make them all stand up on their own and become adults and become awake and trust on their own. Right now, they're seeking him as the leader. And he's trying to teach them all that I'm going to be gone eventually. And you all have to become me. And he's kind of mentioned that to them. And that he even inferred what was the actual outcome. You were all 12 of you, at some point in your life will die and be murdered for doing the same thing that I'm doing. And I will die for saying these things. You will also die. And all 12 apostles were eventually put to death by different people around the world for teaching Jesus's way. Look it up. So they had to sacrifice the same way he did. And all of that is a manifestation in the physical of our sacrifice in the spiritual and what we're supposed to do. Okay. And he was trying to teach them in the physical to get them to realize the spiritual, so that down the road they would be wise enough and actually have it happen. And when it does, to trust that they're going to be okay and not fear, even though he knows they're going to anyways, because they're human, and he does as well. And you see that if you read the Bible, you see that, or if you read any Bible for any hero character, they're in fear of their mortality when they're trying to ascend, even though they may have started as God. They become human and they're bound by all the laws. You were doing the same thing. You were a God. You are the creator. You were the creator. And then you came down to earth. So you're doing the same cycle that Jesus did and all of those savior characters. You're living that. And you will live that over and over in a cyclical nature. So the first is the dark night of the soul and the realization I have one and I have to fix myself. And then you sacrifice yourself there for the betterment of either yourself, as in being in service to self, or the betterment of the all. Then you start to fix yourself and then you ascend. There's another place, and that's when you have to surrender and know that and trust that I'm going to be fine, and that the universe will not just let me die and starve to death. You have to want to, because everything is there. And I realized that when I was homeless, and I'm like, and I tell people now, I don't know what it's like in your country, but here in the United States, you have to want to starve to death. Unless you just sit down and go, I'm going to starve to death. You're making the choice. Because the truth is that everybody will give you everything. And I remember before I was homeless, dealing with the homeless, and I would say to them, why are you homeless? And they're like, because I can get everything that you have, except for your cars and the wealth and the shit that I have to buy into your life to get. What do you mean? Look, I get everything I need. I shower when I want. I wash my clothes when I want. I get food every day when I want. All of that is free. Everybody just gives it to you here. Because they're good people and you do it because it should be done. So you have to, if you want to starve to death, you have to want to. Because if you're hungry, you just ask another homeless person, where do I get food? Come on, I'll show you. You go there and they give you free food. And they'll give you all the food that you can carry. And then they'll have you can come back once a week, once a day, whatever. If you just want to eat, come back here. We'll feed you every day. So you have at least one meal. Then you can take stuff with you. Okay. So the only thing that you have in the physical that you don't have in the physical as a homeless person is a home, a car, a job. That's it. They have everything else you have. They're just doing it outside somewhere. Okay. But then if you're buying into the physical, you don't want to be there. If you're buying into the spiritual, you may or may not want to be there. You won't really worry about where you are. So when they talked to Jesus and they were like, well, look at your clothes, you don't have, a lot of money. He's like, no, but I'm fine. You look skinny. Well, that's because I'm not eating food that's making me fat. Right? Well, that's because you're not eating enough food. Well, I'm alive. I'm healthy. So you're eating enough food. I'm not gluttonous. Do you see? So what we have is what we call security. And security is physicality, because it's not spiritual security. And that's what I'm getting at. You don't have spiritual security here. You have physical. When you move out of the physical and start moving into the spiritual, you realize you don't have spiritual security until you surrender your physical. Then you move into the spiritual. Even though you're still here, you move into the spiritual and try to keep yourself there while the physical and your ego and this whole world and the internet and the television and movies and everything is trying to pull you back out of that into the physical, where you're supposed to live in fear and pay money to people to keep the bad guys away from you. And the only way that works is they got to put the bad guys in front of you. So there has to be homeless people. There has to be strife. There has to be all that. Because if you don't see it, then you go, why am I paying you? There's nobody coming into my country trying to take it over. So they have to give you fear so that they justify their job. So you keep saying they need a job. The government has to be here because there's illegal aliens coming in. But wait, the government's letting the illegal aliens come in. And they're who's pushing the racial tension? The same people running the government. Who's pushing famine on us? The same people that are running the government. Wait, what? Never mind that now. Get a job. Pay taxes and you can have a house. And if you have enough money, you can move into a gated community. Do you see? Stations. You get better security when you contribute more money to the upper echelon. If you want to keep a piece of it, you have to make enough to give them their cut. And if you do that, they'll move you into a place of more security. The more money you have, the more you become worth to them. So the more security in the physical you get, and the more you get locked into the physical. When you move into spiritual, none of that means anything to you. You just need to survive. And as you transition, they can't have you do that, because as you transition, you look at them and go, they're useless. You don't need them at all. No one does. They can't have you thinking that. So they have to push people in front of you and go, look out. Here they come. Look at them. They're all sleeping over there. We can't do anything about it. They're all just over there sleeping. They're pitching tents everywhere. My God, they're shitting everywhere. We need to do something about that. We got to clean these streets up. And then they never do anything. And then they open the border and let more people come in. Think about that. They're not giving these people places to live and jobs like you have. Well, no, because they're not citizens. Well, wait. Aren't you saying that they're migrant workers, that they need a job, and that's why they're coming here? Then how come we're not giving them houses? And we're not giving them a paycheck and making them pay taxes? Oh, wait, because then they lose money because they're not slaves and they're not working for shit pay. And then they're also not as hungry, so they wouldn't be willing to work for that shit pay because now they can afford a house. And then they're only paying taxes and they're making more money for the system. Well, those people that are coming in are smart enough to realize, if I take the cash, I actually make more money because I'm not paying them all their fucking tithing. And that's what the rich people are counting on, that they'll do. Hey, fuck that. I'll get a house. We'll rent a house and we'll have 20 of us living there. And we'll all have to only pay $50 a month. And then we'll just pitch in and we'll take care of each other. They're fucking smarter than all Americans. They grow their own foods. They hide. And then when people turn them in, they move to their neighbor's house. Then if they start getting a paycheck, they lie and they say all the kids are theirs, so they don't have to pay no taxes. They know the system. They're smart to game the system, and they know I'm going to have to put up with some bullshit and do some physical work. Well, they do that while they're young, and they don't want to become a citizen because then they have to have a social security number, and then they have to pay taxes, and that means that the money they were making at $15 an hour cash is now $15 an hour that's taxed. 60% of what you earn. So they're only now making $7 an hour that they can spend. And then when they go, they still have to pay all the same taxes that they pay with their cash. So they know that they're better off, but you guys aren't smart enough. We're not smart enough. I'm a citizen. Those guys are coming here stealing my job. No, they're not. They're taking the job you don't want to fucking do, you lazy ass. And they're getting paid better than you are. You just don't know it. No, they're not. I'm making $60,000 a year. And your taxes is almost half of that. They're getting paid $15 an hour and they're working 80 hours a week or 120 hours a week. Do the math. Figure out no taxes on any of that money. It's all net and they keep it all. Okay? Well, right. I'm making $60,000. Your take home after taxes is $28,000. They're making $15 to $20 an hour cash, no tax. When you add that up for a year, they're making the same amount of money that you're making, and they're not paying any taxes. Or, truthfully, they're making more money than their net that they're taking in is more than yours because you have all the taxes you're paying on the money you think you own. And then you're paying for Social Security and your pension and insurance and all that, and they're not paying any of that. They're paying sales tax at the pump, sales tax at the store, and then they're getting the free shit because they're getting the wives pregnant, and they're getting on free housing, WIC, all the stuff in America, whatever system you have in your country to assist these people, so they're getting free food. So now all the cash that they get from working, they don't have to use to pay for anything except for the little bit of things that they want to drink alcohol or the things that aren't covered from the government pay and the extra that they have to pay for their housing. That's it. So the truth is, these people that come here that you guys are like are illegal aliens and the government needs to do something about them, I keep saying we need to put them all on the payroll because I know that then all of a sudden they're paying 60% of their income to the system again. And that's going to make everybody else prosperous. Rich people are going to get richer, but they're not going to be as rich because they have to pay them and pay for medical insurance and pay for dental insurance and optical insurance and then take taxes out and pay it to the government when the rich corporations don't want to do that. So now they have the liability and they have to cover that and they have to have insurance on that. So it costs them more money and they make less at the end of the year because the government makes some of their money, more of their money. Do you see? So they get in positions of power and they fix it so that they get richer off of the poor people. The poor people who are smart ones don't get in the system because they don't want to be, because they make more money than you do. You just don't know it. And then they laugh at you because you're not awake enough to realize how to game the system and make more money than you're making. And you're paying for the rich people to be rich so that they can rip off those people to make more money, but they have to pay them more. You don't think they're getting paid more because they're only making $15 an hour. But there's no taxes. They're not paying 30 to 60% of that money. They're keeping it all. Do you see? And then they get free medical and free dental and all that stuff for free that you have to pay for. And you're paying for them. Okay? So the best thing you can do, it's not round up all these people and take them out of the country. The best thing you can do is get these people, which they'll never fathom that. So when Ronald Reagan did it here in America in 1980 or 81, when he did that, they wanted to impeach him. But that only lasted until the media picked up on it, and they had to get quiet because the media was saying, why are you not wanting to make them citizens? Because then our slave labor goes to regular labor. And we have to pay for all of their stuff, all the insurance on them and taxes on them and all of that. And we have to pay them a wage, and they're not going to want to do the job when we go, hey, listen, okay, you're here illegally and you want to become an American citizen. Now that you've been working here for cash and you've gotten all these free things, we want to make you an American citizen. And then the person who you say that to, if they have a half a brain, they're going to go, okay, so what does that entail? Well, then that means that you have to get a job and pay taxes. Well, hold on. So now I have to get a job getting paid what I'm paid now, and I have to give you almost 60% of what I make currently doing what I'm doing. Yeah, but then you can call yourself a citizen. and have all those benefits. What benefits do I get that I'm not already getting? You'll have a retirement, which is what I already have, because if I put money away now, I'll have that money in the bank, or if I invest it now, I'll have that money on my own for when I'm old and I want to retire. Then I can take all that money and leave this country and go back to my country where $1 American is 30,000 pesos. So I'll be rich moving back there and I can retire. Never mind that. No, you can be an American. That's why they don't do it, because those people won't. Some of them want to be, but they don't realize that they're giving up everything they already have to become a citizen here, and then they have to pay for everybody else. And those who do that go, fuck, we shouldn't have done this, but then they try to figure out how to make money here so they can leave. Okay? Those people that are rich don't want to do that to the people that are poor, not because they're trying to do them a favor, but because they get penalized and have to pay all kinds of fucking fees and taxes to the governments. So they want all these people here to scare you and get you to think, hey, they're all taking the jobs, man. And I don't even have a job. None of your kids want to take the jobs they're taking because they're lazy and they're already hating the fact that now I got to pay a tithing. So you're going to take all this money out of my check? Because they've never done it for cash, or they did do it because they were entrepreneurs as kids. And they're like, I didn't have to pay taxes on all the stuff I made when I had a paper route or mowing lawns or doing whatever they did. And then they go, well, shut up. And it's the way it is. Right? And then you have guys that show up like Trump did in America. And he's like, I'm going to do away with taxes. We don't need to tax anybody. Everyone was like, what do you mean I don't need oxygen? What do you mean I don't need food? Telling people in this world that you don't need money is like saying you don't have to breathe to live. They don't understand that because they're not taught that. We don't need money. Money is only there so they can claim a higher status than you. That's it. I control that thing. And you have to pay me to use this thing because I own it. That's all that is. Okay? You don't get any food, and they try to tell you, well, it's justified because we need to pay to get it there. We need to pay people to grow it and pay it to get it there. But they regulate that. Ask anybody who's a farmer. Go on TikTok. Go on YouTube. Go on the channels and look that up. You're going to find that there are people out there that are farmers, and they say, I get paid by the federal government to burn my crops. And people are like, they're trying to ruin the world. No, they're keeping the price where they want it. So some people grow corn every year around the world, and definitely in the United States and Canada, just so that the government pays them to destroy it. Because they get paid more money to destroy their crop than they would to sell it. Why is that? Because that controls the amount of corn on the market and keeps the price where the rich people want it so they make the most money. They do the same thing with gasoline all around the world. They only have a certain amount that they pull out of the ground oil-wise and refine into gasoline. And they have a group of people called OPEC that sit around, and when there's too much oil, they stop drilling it and turning it into gasoline so that it drives the price of a barrel of oil up and the price of gasoline up, and they make more profits. And then when they start running out of oil, then they start drilling more oil. And when they have more oil, it lowers the price. And they only let the price go down to a certain point, and then they drive it back up. And they keep that going up and down so it stays at an average price. They do that with everything. So when you think the stock market is a stock market and it's a free market and it has to do with people buying and selling, you're fooling yourself because they are determining the price. And then they have insider trading, and that's legal. And that is determining the price. And you say, no, they're not. The insider trading is not legal. Hedge funds. Those are companies that are given orders of who to destroy to change the price of something. hedge funds buy up a profit, sell it off, destroy a company to keep the price of whatever that company was under control. And they do that to every company that's not already in their pocket and refuses to do what they're told to keep their profit at a highest level possible. And then soon as you go against them, they ruin your company and destroy you to keep control of all things. Okay, I wrote a book about it. So when you think that it's not rigged, it's 100% rigged to be status quo. The cost of eggs, bacon, corn, every commodity, milk, every commodity you can imagine, gasoline, all of it is regulated by them. This is the modus operandi that Raw is trying to tell you about. This is the controlling of your pineal gland by the Anunnaki and the information in the little suitcase and the scrolls in their little waistband is how to run this operation and make it look like to you that it's all a free market and it just happens by whoever supply and demand has the supply and the demand. You don't ever learn how it really works until you become a problem to them, and then they ruin you, and then the squeaky wheel gets the kick, and then you go out and you try to tell people, and they shut you up, they just make you disappear, or they pay you off. Okay, look, you're becoming too popular of telling people about this, so we're going to offer you $100 million to go away. Sign this non-disclosure agreement and go away. And if you're greedy, you're going to go, fuck yeah, I'll take the money. Some people are aware of that, and they start a company on purpose just to get under their skin so it gets sold. Portnoy, look him up. He did that on purpose. Bought a company, turned it into something, sold it off to somebody for $1 billion. A year later, they sold it back to him for $1. He took the same company, built it up, did the same thing. Somebody wanted to buy him out, bought it out for $5 billion. Took that money 2 years later or a year and a half later, those people who ruined his company and couldn't figure out how to run it gave it back to him. And he currently has the same company and he's got about $10 billion in the bank for doing it because he was smart enough to understand how the system works and game the system. And he laughs about it and talks about it openly. Okay. And says this, look, this is what I did. And people don't want him to, every time he starts to talk about it, they come after him. And he doesn't care. He's freaking got billions of dollars. And he doesn't care about them trying to come after him. He just stops doing it and go, all right, I'll shut up so they don't try to ruin his entire life and put him in jail over something. So he's not becoming too much of a problem, but just enough to tell people about it. And then he backs off when he has to, and he just lives his life. Now he's in that place where he's not really out there in the world because he's backed off a little bit. And then he'll come out and antagonize the low guys every now and then. But if you go online and look up how he made his money, he'll brag about it. He knew what he was doing. Some people are smart like that. Donald Trump was one of those people, wrote a book called The Art of the Deal. He got how that works. Okay. He understood that. That's why when he was running for president and, and Hillary Clinton was like, you haven't paid taxes. And he literally go back and watch the video. He was like, you're right. I haven't. I don't have to. Because of what you and your husband enacted into laws so that you and all your friends wouldn't have to pay taxes. I know about that, and I'm utilizing exactly what you guys put into place. There was no one on that stage that said that's a lie and not true, including Hillary Clinton. Everybody, including the announcers, listened to Trump and got very quiet and went, okay, let's go on to the next question, because they didn't want to go down that road any further because he was talking out of church. He was talking out of school. He was talking out of turn. He was literally pushing in her face reality that they don't want you to know about. And he was telling them, I'm not afraid of you, and I'm not afraid to tell the world. Right after he became the president, he was like, I'm going to abolish federal taxes because we don't need it. They shit themselves. They literally went, if he's real, we need to get him out of here now. At all cost, because he was literally saying the federal government is way too big and making too much of your money and doesn't need it. And you don't need to have to pay it because this whole entire endeavor can still work without all of this fucking money. And they're so used to having all that money and getting so rich off of leveraging that money, the government itself, that they all had to get rid of him. And they can't have him become the president again, ever. They're desperate because he's not afraid of that. Okay, now I'm not saying he's the savior of the planet and he's a great guy, but he's not afraid of them. Okay, why is that? Well, because he's one of them, but he's not, and maybe he wants to be in charge of the world. So how best to do it? You go in, you know how it works. You give a little bit of information out to the world. They get on your side. You get rid of those guys who are in charge. You become the guy. Okay. So is that maybe what he's trying to do? Probably. Is it a civil war between the same freaking people? Probably. Who cares? All of that's supposed to be happening. And if he does it to help the world, and then he becomes dictator of the world, then we just get rid of him. But in the meantime, more people wake up, are more prosperous, we make changes. Do you see? If you keep the people in there that you don't know what they're up to and why they're doing it, and they're already fooling you, you'll never get anywhere. You got to have some change. You have to change. And that's the whole purpose of us trying to tell you, question everything, and make these changes. Because as you do, you're going to look at these people in a different light. You're going to see them for who they really, truly are. And you're going to stop letting them run the world. They know it. They know it. And they have to stop you at all cost from knowing this. They know about it. They always have. You just haven't because they took it from you. Okay, I'm done for the night. That was my soapbox. But this is the modus operandi, the MO of the Orion Crusaders, who you know is the Anunnaki. And this is what Ra is talking about. What has happened to you here and what is happening to you here and now, which you think is me talking politics. Oh, no, there he goes. He's got to be my enemy now because I associate with one of those factions of that religion until you don't, because that's where they want you to trigger on me because I'm telling you about them in any way. All of them. If you don't get triggered by what I'm saying, then you already are aware and you're going, fuck yeah, bro, you're so right. But if you're not, as soon as you hear me doing this, you're already gone. Because you think, there he goes. He's talking politics again. What's that got to do with the law of one? That is what Ra is trying to tell you. Politics is what they brought here. Politic is the religion, nautical terms. Maritime law is the law of this planet. That is what they brought here. And that is what has been happening that has made this place stuck and is why you're stuck. All right, that's it. Again, I'm talking in a cyclical nature and I probably triggered people, but if you're here this long and you're still hearing my voice right now, then you probably didn't get triggered unless you just popped in now at the very end. And then you were like, there he goes, politics, I'm out. I'm going to go to TikTok and watch something constructive like women jiggling their boobs or some kid eating something and blowing up his face. Right? I don't want to watch politics. I want to see cats fall off the shelf. That's more constructive. That'll help me ascend. Not. All right, guys. I love you guys. McDonald's. Rick, McDonald's is the only real estate. Is one opens everywhere every 15 minutes, right? No joke, right? I mean, at Taco Bell over here in America, there was a movie, Judge Dredd with Stallone, where Taco Bell was the biggest restaurant on the face of the earth at the time in the future, right? Because obviously they paid money to be in the movie, right? To do so. But yeah, the corporations. If you go back and watch, just saw James Caan with Scott Caan today. I was watching an old episode from 2012 of Hawaii Five-0, and Scott Caan played Dano, and his father, James Caan, was in there as an ex-cop. And they're both from New York, and it was funny that he wasn't playing his father, but it was his father as the character. And only if you know that Scott Caan is the actor, then you know that James Caan is his father. And his dad was on there. It was beautiful to watch the two of them acting together. They were so great. And they were both being New Yorkers, which they are. And so If you go back in time, I saw it in the 70s. I don't know if it was a movie from the 70s, but you can Google it. James Caan did a movie, and it was called, what was it called? Rollerball, and it was a forward-thinking movie about roller skating, and because at the time back then, roller skating around a rink, doing this game that they still do it. That's called roller derby, and you have these two teams, and it's like a football match. Only you have a ball, and you're supposed to try and go around and you attack these guys. And now they do it without a ball, and they just have this attacker that has to weave their way through past everybody, and they're trying to stop you by physically knocking you off of the ring. No joke. And so everybody's wearing helmets and football pads and the nines. And back then you did it with a ball, and you had to put the ball in a thing, and it was called rollerball, and it turned into a blood sport. And if you watch the movie, the reason that all of that did that is they made remakes of it as well. In time, they made one back in 2012. But I don't know if yes, they did in both of those. So if you watch Rollerball, either one of those from the 60s or 70s with James Caan, or the other one that came out that was about 10 years ago or so, that was forward thinking. I think that was a Philip K. Dick book or one of those. And it was about the corporations taking control of the world. And back then, no one realized that. And it was a futuristic thought that the corporations would take control of the world. And they didn't realize back then that the corporations had already done that. And that these guys were trying to tell you the same thing Raw is trying to tell you, that's what has happened here. And that corporations actually rule this earth. And that's the information that they're not giving you something in your pineal gland. They're controlling that so you don't know. And that what's in that little bag is the knowledge of how to build these societies and control them and control the people and control the minds of the people. And that's what the Anunnaki shows you in their statues all around the world. And I believe that those statues were originally put up by people warning the world about it. And that everybody thinks that it is the Anunnaki who put those up. And the Anunnaki is utilizing those now as their symbol, but I don't believe they originated it. I think they took control of that and started showing people when those statues would appear that it meant that they were solidifying their control of that area. But I think originally they're going to discover when they were built and by who. You're going to find that it was people trying to warn the world. And when they've gotten now to Turkey and finding that site in Turkey, which I can't remember the name of it right off the top of my head right now. Is it Sacsayhuaman? I don't remember the name. Maybe one of you guys do. But that was the one that was buried, and they've uncovered it, and they've realized that was done on purpose. And that was the people who built Stonehenge, and they just discovered that they used to be a global empire, that they lived on this earth. And they actually originated from what is now Turkey, was where the capital was, and that they literally were a prosperous, law-abiding world group, and that there was a catastrophe not caused by them that caused them to fall, and that was the beginning of what you now know. It was the Orion invaders, the Orion Crusaders invading. But they didn't actually get here back then 10,000 years ago or 20,000 years ago. But that has to do with the Temporal War and how they actually got here a lot sooner than you think. But their footprint goes back because you have to have past, present, and future. You have to have a past. So when you get here and you come down here, then that actually expands. And if you're aware enough, you actually have to have an origin here. Otherwise, you are an alien invasion. So to convince everybody that you come down here, you have to come down here and not be an alien invader. To make changes here, you have to become in this timeline. And so it's really complicated, and I'm having a hard time explaining it, not because I can't find the words, but because you guys aren't ready to get this. But when you get here in the physical, you have to have a past, and that allows you to then make changes in the past from the present. Because you have to have that, and that's what they've done. They got here, and they're changing things in the past. And so the temporal war is also people like myself who are aware of that, fixing what they have done after they've done it or before. and changing things before they could change it or changing it after they changed it. And we're hopping over one another, and we're doing this throughout time and shifting things back and forth. And since they left, the only people that know about it now are evil people, and they because they're from here, don't have the ability to make those changes anymore. Only the people who made the changes have the ability to unmake them. So those of us who have come here to help fix this, we have the ability to make the changes the same in the past, and we've done that. But it wasn't because we came here 150,000 years ago. Came here probably 14,000 years ago, but because that was 14,000 years ago, we have a memory of being here double that, right? So it was actually more than 14,000 years, because whatever half of 75,000 years ago, that's that by our perspective. But that gives us access to 150,000 years ago. 75 plus 75. Do you see? So because we're here in the now, we have access to that. They did too, but they left. So everything they did when they got here, they immediately left when we got here because they're afraid of us. They ran. So now we're repairing what they did when they were here for that short period of time. You guys are unaware of that. You just know that you've been stuck for a long time and you don't know why or how, because it's instinctive. Some of you who are waking up to the realization, you still don't know what to do. We do, because we came from outside of time, and we're conscious of that. But we're not when we first get here. I am in this lifetime because I was supposed to be in this lifetime, because in the now, because this is now, sir, in the now, everybody else is supposed to be waking up, and there are a group of us who are supposed to be already awake now to help guide all of those who are waking up to become present. And we're a large number of people. Okay, there's billions of us that came here to fix this. There are millions of us who are here that are unveiled in this life, that have been in the last 70 years and will be for forever now. So that's why a lot of young people are coming in already awake, and some of you might know them, and they might be children, and they might not be veiled. And why is that exponentially happening? Because this is now. This is the time of change. Everything else that has happened is over. Okay? And that's what we're trying to let you guys realize. It's already over. You've already won. You're in the mop-up stage and you don't know it. Okay? And we're not just saying that because we're trying to be cool, right? Or we have to convince them that we're all... No, we know that to be true. And we're trying to show you by waking you up enough to where you realize it too. Because as soon as everyone starts to realize it, it will actually just become. But as long as they can convince you otherwise, it slows down the process. And that's all they're able to do now, is to control the process and slow it down. And they've been doing that for the last 75,000 years, slowing down the process. But they can't anymore. And they know that, and they're still fighting against it. But they can't tell you that, because for them to even admit that out loud is admitting the truth. And they can't do that. They're going to, to their dying breath, they're going to be spitting at you, spitting at us. Literally. And then at some point, there will be the seminal point where it just cascades. And then everything will change in an instant. I'm hoping that it happens in this lifetime for me. I've been here a long time and I'm kind of tired. Okay. And there's a lot of you out there that sense that too. Not just in me, but in yourself. That's my point. We've been doing this for a long time, man, and we're ready for this to be fixed. So we're stepping up operations because we're into the next phase. The planet itself in our galaxy, our solar system, is shifting into a phase of energy that is making this happen whether we're here or not. It's just the natural order of these things. So even if we were not here currently, this would still be happening, just not as fast, because it's supposed to. That's why they left. They were only here long enough to rape this place for all of the resources they need to keep moving. They knew they had a limited time here. They also knew that we were going to follow them and kick their ass out. So they came here, took what they could at the time, and then bailed. But all of what they did, the damage, what they did, we're now mopping up because it's the right thing to do. We're fixing. Not because we're responsible for them, but because somebody should be doing it. So we're trying to fix because they screwed you guys up, slowed you down, stopped you from ascending. Nobody's gotten out of here. You've been in prison, and that's what they're still trying to give you that fear by going, "This is a prison, and we're going to capture your soul." And they need you to believe that because they got to slow you down. Because the second you stop believing them is the second that everything changes in your life, and that changes everyone's life. Do you see? All right, I got to go. It's almost 7. I got to do dinner. I love you guys. I'll see you guys next week. I don't know if Jacqueline's going to be on tomorrow, so we might be live tomorrow. I didn't talk to her today. Normally I do by now, and I've been so busy this week that I didn't. So we might be on at noon my time, West Coast America time, tomorrow on Jacqueline's show. If not, I'll see you guys next Friday. All right. I love you guys. Have a great night. This has been Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into this show.